the month of May, the chant liberation. We gather every year in the month of May, 'cause we are one black nation. And we celebrate all our victory and prepare for each new fight. We vanquish you all down pressure, whether black, yellow, brown or white. 'Cause black struggle international in this year time, and we want liberation now. After we struggle, I go in North America, me say we want liberation now. After we struggle, I go in the Caribbean, me say we want liberation now. After we struggle, I go in Canada, me say we want liberation now. After we struggle, I go in South America, me say we want liberation now. After we struggle, I go in Europe, me say we want liberation. No, happy we struggle, I go on in a Britain, man, me say we want liberation. No, happy we struggle, I go on in a Asia, me say we want liberation. No, happy we struggle, I go on in a Australia, me say we want liberation. No, and so we trot down the road and it a cause sensation. Behind the colors of the new black nation, I step into the valleys in the shadow of the wicked, just a chant liberation. Tell it to the nation, what we want to see is Africa strong and free. We sing it in a reggae song all the time. Say what is to be has got to be. Africa shall be free. Who are we? Africans. What do we want? Freedom. And we say, how do we get it? Fight, we must fight. To defend the truth and defend the right. It's Africa Liberation Day. The true black spirit is here to stay. Before this power, no one life is here. Freedom come, what me? Freedom come, what me? And the wife them who were standing by were watching fearful, wondering, saying, who are these people who walk so proud? Who are these people who chant so loud? Are these not they who live in darkness and to whom we have given light? Are these not the sons and daughters of the savage who we have taught to read and write? Have we not taught them our history and honor them with our culture? And brought them into our great house to serve and stand at our great table? Have we not granted them what they deserve? Well, African proverbs say that only those who can listen can learn, and who can hear go and feel. We are the sheep of the pasture, and now we shall inherit our land. And we are also the lion, against who none shall stand. We are the sons and daughters of the original nation that gave to this world first knowledge of civilization. We were the victim of the white savage to whom we stretch out our hand, and not knowing they came to plunder, kill and slave our people and destroy our land. So now we step it down the road and it a cause sensation. Behind the colors of the new black nation and a one chant liberation. And we say, who are we? Africans. What do we want? Freedom. And we say, how do we get it? Fight, we must fight. We defend the truth and defend the right. This is Africa Liberation Day. A true black spirit is here to stay. Before this the power, no one life is there. Freedom come, what me? A freedom come, what me? A freedom come, what me? What me?
Ladies and gentlemen, would you please put your hands together? Let me bring on stage Hollis, Liverpool, Chocolates. Delight. Chocolates. Especially for the mothers, all present. I see black women running from their race. They own black children they can't face. They don't know their roots as a glorious bloom. Blessed be the fruit of their womb. They just be acting as though they're ashamed of their history. They just be proud of other people's own. They just be glad to disclose their baby's ancestry, putting their child upon a false throne, not their own. For hear them boast to their friends and their neighbor, my baby's nose from his Spanish grandfather. My grandmother married a Chinese named Lau. That is why the eye's so pretty and he has such thick eyebrow. The dimple come from my husband's side, whose great-grandfather was Irish. And watch how the eyes pretty and wide, cause my mother mixed with British. And watch at me, I'm Caribbean Portuguese, so me shiny and curly. But the baby black down to the eyeball, they see Africa at all, at all, at all, at all. I said the baby black like a voodoo doll, they see Africa at all. I see black women running from their race. Food from our table, they can't face. If you hear them boast about how they just make French fry and French toast with gut steak, they have a name for all them foreign foods they using. Italian pizza, they murdering. Big African wedding, they serving Spanish rice with Scotch whiskey and French wine on ice to feel nice. Chinese chowing, serving in black christening. English muffin, when the sun graduating. They just fry egg and call that Spanish omelette. And frying Irish potato with New Zealand butter instead. Hungarian goulash and Irish stew is what they're preparing for lunch. They even going Honolulu to drink up the Hawaiian punch. Then when they brew, they're mommy and turn cuckoo and swizzle callaloo. Or beg your bone and champion roll. They don't see Africa at all, at all, at all, at all. They that she looks small.
They don't see Africa at all.
Black people must stop running from their race and search this their place for their traits. You don't have to go by plane to Ghana in order to see Africa. Every time you come planting with mortar and pestle, or on your hand you wear your slave band, or when people go jumping, walk tall amidst the people, then you rubbing shoulders with Africans. Understand what the neighbors say, how she neighbors string berry in New York City, so that makes her a Yankee. Oh, how she loves stories of Arabian Nights and boasting about her French perfume and her Turkish delights. African dashiki she won't wear, she would not even plait her hair. Stories of the Nagahu, her children them never hear. That when she husband, Mr. Paul left her last year, she run quickly for Obia. She burn and light to put light on Paul. She ain't see Africa at all, at all, at all, at all. The Obia man gives she bushman to bring back Paul.
She ain't see Africa at all.
I'm gonna tell you.
One, two, 1, 2. All right, kings and queens. Fast start. 10 down wildly be thankful unto the mother, father, creative life force of the universe. Kodzai Mudzimu Mokoro. We give praises unto our great ancestors. Abibi Tumi. Abibi Fahodi, African power and African liberation for all African people. Greetings and welcome, brothers and sisters, to this edition. We are live in the building. Today is Ujima Day, Tuesday, the 5th of March, and it is another ZIVANAYI session. For those who are not aware, the word sound ZIVANAYI, spoken in the Shona language of Zimbabwe, simply means to get to know each other. Yes, indeed, kings and queens. Make we talk, 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 make we talk. Make we talk. We have a reason today. We have a reason and season today. All right. So do stay tuned. Hit up the like button as you come through, brothers and sisters. Hit up the like button. If you are not subscribed to gotkushTV, do subscribe to gotkushTV. Yes, indeed, kings and queens. We are your premier Pan-African media coming out of the UK, transmitting and streaming worldwide. Yard and foreign kick up. So it's all about gotkushTV right about now for the next hour or two. And we are going to converse. I'm going to be sharing the link shortly so that you can come through. It's our open house. You can come through and share your thoughts. I will open up the floor by sharing some of my thoughts, some of the things that I've been thinking about over the past week. And we are going to invite you to do the same. Yes, indeed, we're going to invite you to do the same. All right, kings and queens. So it's going to be a beautiful show today. I look forward to sharing some thoughts with you. Share the link far and wide, family. Share the link far and wide. People have known that ShakaRa is live right about now. And today we are going to be discussing the Black Conservative Industrial Complex classified. Mr. the Black Conservative Industrial Complex, classified. Now, many people, yeah, you know, that are avid listeners and viewers to ZIVANAYI with ShakaRa would have heard me use this terminology many, many times. Yeah, the Black Conservative Industrial Complex. Well, we want to know what it is. Yeah, what is it? What we are called Black Conservative Industrial Complex. That we want to know, family. You know what I'm saying? So I'm gonna break it down a little piece today, and then you know, anybody will have something to share upon that, you can share it, or you can share something completely different. Shouting out to my brother Bunchy and Yete, we were able to launch the first edition of our new show, which is Ghana Democracy Under Fire. Yeah.
I can't think about this democracy. 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 Democracy, democracy.
Yes, indeed, kings and queens. Ghana Democracy Under Fire, coming to you every 4th Tuesday of the month with myself and brother Bunchy and Yete, breaking it down. If you missed our first episode, go and check it out right about now. And I will let you know also, some of you may already be aware that brother Bunchy is going to join me tomorrow as well. But we'll come back to that little piece later on. All right, family? So yes, indeed. We are in our weekly session today, yeah, and I want to talk about a little something. All right, so for those who are not aware, in the UK, somewhere between September, December time, you know, we are going to be in the midst of a general election. No, me no vote, you know, me never vote in my life, yeah. But I'm always praying, you know, the political situation, because, you know, this is part of our work, yeah, as Pan-Africanists, all right. And one of the dynamics, yeah, that has significantly increased over the past few years, you've had a quote-unquote conservative government in power for, I believe, around 14 years now. Yeah, the conservative power. Yes. So the Conservative Party has been in power. They took over from Labour over a decade ago. All right. And one of the things, yeah, that has increased significantly during that period of time is the rise of the Black conservative. Yeah. Now, they've always existed. And I think brothers and sisters in America, in the USA, would have been very, very familiar with this particular phenomena. Brothers and sisters who are from France, you know, or French-speaking African world, whether on the continent or in the Caribbean, will be familiar with these people. Yes, and I'm not sure if they call them Black conservatives in French-speaking African world, but they will be familiar with the kind of, you know, dynamic that we're going to be discussing today. Yeah, and so it is my prediction. So I don't even really have to predict it. It's already in train. Yeah. But in this coming election for us in the UK, the Black conservative is going to be a significant dynamic in this election period and going forward. Yeah. Now, because of the fractures in the Conservative Party, because of the state of the British economy, and because the Conservatives have been in for over a decade, as I mentioned earlier, they are expected to lose, yes, at the next general election in the UK. They're expected to lose to the Labour Party. All right, they're expected to lose to the Labour Party. Oh, by the way, before I go any further, you know, I forgot to shout out the you know, I played a little extra you know, musical selection and at the beginning of the show. So I want to know if anybody can name the artists, yeah, who are played at the beginning of the show. All right. I want to know if anybody can name the artists who are played at the beginning of the show. And if nobody mentions the name in about 5 minutes, then I'll put you out your misery. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? But yeah, I just want to know if anybody can name the artists who are played at the beginning of the show. I'll just be interested to know. All right. Okay. Where's I now? Yeah. So they're set to lose this election. Yeah. Regardless of what, however, regardless of whether they lose the election or not, what the Conservative Party have succeeded in doing as far as the black community is concerned is create platforms, yes, for what I refer to as the Black Conservative Industrial Complex. All right. And I'm going to go through a brief breakdown of what I'm referring to when I talk about the Black Conservative Industrial Complex today. Yeah. We're going to go through, some of the main characters, yes, or caricatures, caricatures, should I say, yeah, that make up the Black Conservative Industrial Complex. Yeah. But these people have been given profile and platform to cause a fracture within black political development and thoughts, yes, in this country. Okay. And so regardless of whether they win or lose the election, there is a mission in train that has yielded a lot of benefits, yeah, to tie black people in the UK to British nationalism. And that operates on varying different levels. It's not just a conservative thing. It's also a Labour Party thing. It's not just a right leaning, on the political spectrum thing. It's also a left leaning on the political spectrum thing. The left side of it looks more like, we're going to put in at the football team and make sure say half the England football team is Mandem. Yeah. All right. Or, we're going now both of them do this next one, yeah, but to varying different, to the same intentionality, but using different strategies. Yeah. The other one is to talk about black contributions, yes, to British society and flag up that, there's a significant amount of West Indians and Africans fought in the two major world wars on behalf of Britain, on behalf of the United Kingdom of Great Britain, and so on and so forth. Yes. And so this is not, a specific, dynamic to the conservative side of the thing necessarily. Yeah. However, because of the fact that the black community, for better or for worse, has consistently voted Labour for the majority of its time in the UK since the so-called Windrush. The rise of the black conservative and its popularization in the mainstream media, mainstream politics, is a relatively recent phenomenon, but a relatively recent phenomenon that is growing in influence, yes, and in profile across the British media, intentionally so. Yeah. And so it's necessary for us to just be able to dissect the dynamics of these things because it operates on many, many different levels. All right. Levels. So nobody can tell me who the artist was. I'm going to tell you. Yeah. So the artist that I played at the beginning of the show, legendary Calypsonian, from Trinidad. His name, yeah, is Hollis Liverpool, aka Chartdos, yeah, aka Chartdos. And the song that he was singing is They Ain't See Africa At All. And so I just thought I'd open that way, mostly because I love Chartdos, you know what I mean? And I always have some beautiful lyrics, yeah, as a Calypsonian, but also because it's his birthday today, yeah. So when we lock off right now, please feel free to check out Chartdos. Yeah, you're gonna see a lot of live shows to a significant degree. But Chartdos a serious man, yeah. You know what I'm saying? He's a scholar as well, you know what I'm saying? So yeah, it's necessary for us to know about these cultural icons that are still with us, in fact. All right. So shout out to Mighty Chartless, anyway in the world. All right. And big up the old Trinidad massive. Okay, brothers and sisters. You know, I neglected to actually shout out the chat. So let me do that right about now. Bigging up gotkushTV in the building. James O. Mellerman, Imhotep Kale is in the building. And of course, our resident neoliberal hyper-capitalist apologist, Coffee Campbell. All right. So as always, brothers and sisters, if you want your comment read out, please at gotkushTV. And we will dutifully read your comment out once we star it. If you don't at gotkushTV, we won't be reading your comment out, just so we can differentiate between Wagwan in a chat and Wagwan in terms of comments that need to be read out. Also, please look up the Patreon if you are so inspired. Please look up the Patreon if you are so inspired. I am gearing up towards developing some Patreon-only content. Yeah, you know, just adding some extra things to the channel and doing some Patreon-only content. Yeah, and it will take some different forms. I'm gearing up to doing that at the moment. But for now, brothers and sisters, if you just love what gotkushTV are doing and want to assist us in being able to get back to producing our shows, like the Kush Community, like Wordsmith, our platform for artists, like the Black Group Economic Show, you know, please, yeah, hit up the Patreon. All right, give thanks. All right, kings and queens, we're there. So we're gonna get into this, yeah, and I want to break this down nice and easy. All right. So now I'm gonna do this very light, yeah. We're not going on a deep analysis. All right. I'm just gonna give you the basic caricatures, yes, that are in the Black conservative industrial complex. Break it down so that we can identify them when we see them and know exactly where they lie in the pecking order. And in order to engage this dynamic, because the Black conservative industrial complex in this country takes so much deep pride in being British and Britishness, yeah, and affirming, yes, the fact that British culture and the culture of the West is for them own a culture and the number one best kind of culture for us to immerse ourselves in, and that there are really no significant issues for us as African people in relation to this particular culture. We just need to dive in and immerse ourselves in it. Yeah, I'm gonna use British class stratification type terminologies, yeah, to identify the different dynamics, the different characters within the Black conservative industrial complex. I'm going to make sure the people them can see me slides them and all these things. All right, okay. So come we go into this dynamics, yeah. Let me change up my layout a little piece more. Yeah, I want to know, take in the vibes. Yeah, okay. All right, so let's go into this thing now. So the first level, yes, of participation within the Black conservative industrial complex, and maybe I should really just highlight the terminology here. So black people, conservative, you know, leaning to the values of what is considered to be conservative, yes, within the context of British society, in particular, white Western society in general. Okay, so you generally have conservative elements in the entirety of white Western society. Yes, and there are various different values that are related to this. But as the term conservative might suggest, the intent of the conservative within white Western society, within the white power structure, the global white power structure, is to conserve, yes, that is to preserve and perpetuate the power, the values, and the dominance of white Western society, white power globally in today's world. And so we have Black people who affirm, yes, the values and defend and protect the interest of white power in today's world, okay? And so this is not to suggest necessarily that the other side of the political spectrum in white power dynamics, i.e. the so-called left, or i.e. The so-called liberal, or you know, there are various different terminologies for them in this day and age, is not also a preserver and perpetuator of white Western power, but they go about these things in different ways. Yeah. And so this is a particular dynamic that we'll get into some of the details of during the process of the conversation. And when we say industrial complex, what we are talking about is a reality in which this formulation among Black people is very well funded, and funded by the resources of white power. Yes. So they've created an industrial group, an industrialized grouping, whereby people can be rewarded and remunerated for their participation in this group and their propagation of the values and the principles and the ideas that are given to them by the white power structure in general, and in this instance, the conservative white power structure in particular, the conservative element of the white power structure in particular. So the word classified now is just about, we're actually going to go into some classifications, and the key word in the word classified and classification is the word class. So let me talk about some class to us. All right. And so the first level is the minions. Yeah, we're going to talk about the minions. And a minion is defined as a follower or underling of a powerful person, especially a servile or unimportant one. Yeah, I'm going to extend this dictionary definition for a second and say a follower or underling of a powerful person or institution. Yes, or group of institutions, especially a servile or unimportant one. And so this is the level of people who, you know, really have no profile. You wouldn't know them by name. You know what I'm saying? Necessarily, you don't know who they are in particular, but their manifestation is very well felt on social media. Yes, they're not on a personal profile. Yeah, you know, you wouldn't be able to identify the individuals themselves, but they're a group on social media that comment a lot. Yeah, and because of that, they have some force. Yeah, and so these are people that you know, basically troll. Yes, any other type of message, people that promote any other type of message that is considered to be contrary to the interest of white power, and particularly the conservative, you know, element of white power. These are people that you know, frequent Pan-African platforms for the express purpose of negating and throwing a spanner in the works of the Pan-African message. These are people who are on Twitter and on Instagram, but in particular Twitter nowadays, who promote fallacies about Pan-Africanism in the context of pledging allegiance to and affirming their allegiance to the British society or the American society or the French society. These are people who, you know, are popular, have these talking points on social media that says Pan-Africanism has failed, yeah, for example. And I'm focusing on the Pan-African talking points because this is a Pan-African panel or a Pan-African channel, so to speak. Yeah. So we don't know who them is, you know. These are the people, yes, who would say that Black people in Britain should not identify with our African heritage because it's not important and Africans don't like us, and Pan-Africanism is a scourge on the quote-unquote Caribbean identity. They would affirm that we are Caribbean and not African. These are people who define Caribbean identity in opposition to African identity, and within that context, them have a tendency, you know, for profile and give prestige and privilege to non-Africans who are native to the Caribbean, i.e., the Indian them and the Chinese them and the Portuguese them and the German them and the British them, under the banner of the fact or promoting the argument that Caribbean is not just African, even though African is the overwhelming majority of the Caribbean, but they feel the need to identify that the black element of the Caribbean is not African. The contradiction for these people is that them never say, them never say. When them talk about the Indian them is still Indian. The Chinese them is still Chinese. The Irish them is still Irish. But the African is just Caribbean. And among those people that exist in Britain say that we should stop referring to ourselves as African Caribbean because we are British Caribbean. Yes. This is the dynamics among a lot of the minions them, all right? So a lot of these talking points you find heavily on social media, but generally speaking, these are nameless, faceless people, all right? You don't really know who them is, yeah? And there are a few other talking points that are more well explored when we get to the other stages of the class issue. So that's the minion level, yeah? So notice the minion them, all right? The minions among the black conservative industrial complex, yeah? You know what I'm saying? Them deb out the place and enough of them. And we must also be aware of the fact that the minions, because most of their representation is on social media, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube, yeah? Not all of them are in fact actual human beings, people, yeah, individual people, personality, we have mama and papa. A lot of these people, in my humble estimation, are in fact bots of the CIA and the MI6 and the FBI and the MI5, etc., etc., etc. Okay, these are people who are, not people in the natural sense, but are in fact electronic constructions designed to push talking points among the black community and popularize and insert certain talking points among the black community. So some of them are real people, some of them are in fact not. But that's the minions, yeah? We have plenty of minions about the place. Them now have nothing constructive for say. Yeah, so a lot of the minions you'll find, are also promoting the voting for the Conservative Party, or voting for, as it relates to America, the Republican Party. They're very big, supporters of Suella Braverman, the UK, and what's the other one name? Liz Truss, yeah, and then Trump, as it relates to America. Trump or any of the Trump-like candidates in the Republican Party in America. Them people there, the minion them. Yeah, so then now the name, now the profile. Yeah, they're just random individuals and or bots who are designed especially for the purpose of just coming upon, black social media platforms and trying to cause disruption. That's all them depend. Yeah. All right. Then now the next level of the situation is the peons and the serfs. Yeah. The peons and the serfs, two related terminologies depending on where you're coming from in the world. All right. But this is defined traditionally as a member of a low social class in medieval times who worked on the land and had to obey the person who owned that land. Now, we're not literally now speaking about land, yeah, today. We're now literally speaking about land today. And that's actually the wrong image, yeah. I apologize, brothers and sisters. That image was meant to feature a British flag, but you know what I mean? I saw it go. All right. Anyway, yeah, we're talking about the conceptual landscape in this regard, yeah. Now, these are the aspirant class, yes, of the black conservative industrial complex. These are the ones now who have taken on the initiative to put a name and a face behind their talking points, yeah. These are the ones who develop Instagram accounts and YouTube accounts whereby they put out content, yes, and them sure you feed them face, and then why if you know where them name, yeah. But they are essentially auditioning. Yes, they're auditioning for the next level, which I will come to in a second. Yeah, but they've cottoned on to the fact that there is significant prestige to be found, money to be made, and profile to take advantage of in perpetuating these talking points. These are the ones who you find whenever somebody is either harassed, brutalized, and or killed in police custody. These are the ones who are going to come out to defend the state and challenge the protests of African people, the uproar of African people, you know, the demonstration of African people with talking points such as, but police brutality is not that much of a significant issue. But do we protest when it's black on black violence? Those are those people that are gonna, you know, come about. Yeah, you know what I'm saying? Them have, again, these are the ones we can name them. We know who them is. Yeah, you know what I'm saying? They're not afraid to show their face. These are the ones who we will find always apologizing to white people and British society for the behavior of African people. These are the ones that go on popular platforms, yes, often independent media platforms hosted by conservative white people, to prove that they are not like the rest of the Negroes. Yes, and one of the ways in which they do this is to give a platform to the most degrading images, and sometimes those images are self-degrading among African people, and flag this up as a definitive component of black culture. Yes, these images are representative of black culture or things that are acceptable within black culture. So they go on, you know, they're fond of talking about Sukihana and Sexy Red, yeah, you know, from you know, especially the men among said groups of people, you know, and going on platforms that are hosted by white people, usually white men, but not exclusively. There's a few that are hosted by white women certain times as well, and you know, demonstrating that they themselves are separate and distinct from these images, and they are unpopular among black people because of their die-hard propensity to call out the shegri. Yeah, these are the call-out people. Yeah, we need to call out this and call out that among black people. These are the ones who go on, you know, who after they've successfully, you know, profiled themselves on social media, they get shared by conservative think tanks and media in this country, and underneath wherever they said, I remember one time, for example, you know, a few years ago, it was talk about are you proud of your country? Are you proud to be British? And the idea of whether or not Britain is a racist country. And there are a number of you know, videos coming out. There's people that nobody really knew them, but they were being shared, yes, by conservative media and conservative think tanks, yeah, in, you know, random people on the internet, but being shared by significant institutions, conservative institutions in this country. And under the comments, the individual in the video will be saying, I don't need, for example, to ask whether my country is a racist country. I just know, I feel it in my blood, I feel it in my bones that the country is not racist, that Britain is not racist. I'm proud to be British. And underneath that video, you'll see comments from X amount of white people. Oh, he's so articulate. Oh, she speaks so well. Oh, what a well-mannered example of, you know, manhood. I wish more black youth need to take on his example. Yes, that kind of vibration. Yeah, you know, they seem to feel affirmed by getting patted on the head by white folks, random white folks on the internet. And random white folks on the internet seem to be very happy to present them, but they always seem to come with terms like he speaks so well and she's so articulate, that kind of vibration. These are the peons and the serfs, yeah. They're found heavily, unfortunately, among the black manosphere, yeah. I should say the manosphere in general, because not all manosphere is the black manosphere, and even where black men are situated may not necessarily be the black manosphere, but they're popular among the black manosphere, in particular, to promote degrading talk about black women. The other side of that, the divestors, I don't find that they're as represented in the black conservative industrial complex, although there is some crossover, yeah, in relation to the degradation of black men. But the difference where the manosphere dynamic is concerned is that these black men sit down, yes, with other white men or white women to discuss what is wrong with black men and black culture. These are the ones who are out here, talking about the fact that black fathers are not taking care of their children, for example. Yeah, these are the ones that are talking about the fact that black women don't know how to be fit, friendly, and I can't remember what the other F is. Yeah, you know what I'm saying? Like, I always forget there's 3 F's. I can't remember what the other F is. Feminine, fit, and friendly, and all them things there. Yeah, these are them people. Yeah, that them love to sit down with white people and discuss what is wrong with black people. They also have a significant allegiance towards the nationalism of the country in which they live. In this particular instance, Britain. Sometimes they're challenging black people for not being as affirmative as they are in assuming British identity, and they complain about the state of the country from the perspective of having British heritage. So they talk about this country is going down the drain, yeah, things like that. All right, like there was once a time when the country was the land of hope and glory. Yes, to quote the well-known song, which is one of the suggestions for a specifically English national anthem. They complain. Some of them complain about immigrants. Yeah, them complain about immigrants. Yeah, and how illegal immigration is tearing the country apart. And all of these things, yeah. They reason about foreign policy, like the war in Ukraine or Gaza, from the perspective of being British and supporting and defending British interests, and or protecting Britain from the calamity that may befall them if they don't take a particular kind of course of action. These are them people, yeah. So these are the peons and the stuff. They developed a name, yes. They developed a name, they've got some profile, and sometimes they'll get invited on GB News, yeah? Maybe they might even get invited on Good Morning Britain every now and then, yeah? You know what I'm saying? They'll get that profile, to spout these particular talk. They're generally not experts in anything. They're not a qualification in not what I'm talking about, but their talking points are convenient, yes? For the right-wing conservative establishment. And so this is the level upon which being in the black conservative industrial complex begins to pay off in terms of remuneration. But remember, these people are simply peons and serfs for their intellectual landlords, yes, which is the white power structure in this instance in the United Kingdom of Great Britain. So I'm hoping that as I'm speaking, you're identifying, yes, the people them, yes, and you're able to identify from this day forward when we are talking about and when you see them on the TV, the television, on your social media, etc., etc. So that's the peons and serfs. And if anybody's got anything to add to these identifications, only can let me know. All right. Hope everyone's good. Let's check everything's good. Yeah. Okay. I'm just gonna start some of these comments so I can make sure that I read them out. If you want your comment or question read out, please at gotkushTV. Please at gotkushTV. I'm detailing the characters. Yes. Within the black conservative industrial complex right about now. That we are doing. Yeah, we let's talk about the caricatures and that are in this phenomena called the black conservative industrial complex, because they're going to become more prominent as we lead up to a general election in the UK. So now I'm talking about the peons and the serfs. These are the ones who are developing a profile for themselves, yes, and they are apologists, yes, for white power and degraders of black culture, and they make their name as outliers from what is the general black culture. Yeah, them go upon white platforms, to declare that they're different from the rest of the niggers. Yes, and that they don't like nigger behavior, and that because of this fact, yes, that they are among the chosen few who are willing to call out the behavior, the degrading, unsophisticated behavior of the niggers. They are ousted from the black community. These are they. Okay, these are they. All right, and then finally, we have the Gentry stroke Knights. Yes, and I'm using, because of the black conservative industrial complex propensity and affinity towards why is that there? White culture and white history. I'm using these class stratifications within white society, yes, to outline exactly what these caricatures are, because they are really caricatures, but they play these caricatures very, very well, proudly, and so may it serve them well, and it is serving them well. But this is really the highest level, and then there are subdivisions in all of these categories that I've mentioned so far. I'm just giving you the three main ones. Yeah, this is the highest level, yes, of the black conservative industrial complex. When you get to be a Gentry or a Knight, you've reached the promised land as far as the black conservative industrial complex is concerned, because now you have been embraced by the white power structure to the extent that they're not only willing to make you a talking head, on this podcast or that particular discussion show, and they're not just willing to share, your video upon Fidem platform and all them things. This is the point at which you get in a permanent job, yes, within the conservative power structure. Yeah, this is when they make you a politician. You get made an MP. All right. This is the vibration. Yeah, this is when them give you, them fund your program. Yes, from the perspective of being a think tank. When the think tank give you money, yeah, for do this and do that, or to write this and write that. Yeah. This is the level that you get to. These are the people that now they're MPs in the Conservative Party. They have position in the cabinet, or depending the shadow cabinet if they're not in power. This is that level. These are the ones who are commissioned by conservative think tanks within the white Western power structure elite to write policy papers that deal with the black community, that are intended to prove, yes, for example, that the white power structure does not detrimentally impact its citizens of African heritage. These are the ones who are designed, yes, and put out there to write scholarly articles and papers and so on and so forth, yeah, that seek to confuse and divert and problematize any form of in-group affinity and organization among African people, and that operates on the national as well as the international level. So the idea, for example, that Africans in the UK should not identify as African or African Caribbeans, that there should be separate categories, and that the black African should identify as black African and the black Caribbean should identify as black Caribbean, for example, and that those two groups of people should not align their interests and see their interests as one unified interest. Yes, that it must be divided among subdivisions that are often antagonistic. Yeah, so it's one thing to subdivide. In one level, there's nothing wrong with that. On another level, when those subdivisions are designed to become antagonistic, that's the vibration. Yeah. And then the other level of this is on the international level. So they're commissioned to write a book about how Britain is not a racist country, but America is the country that has the racist history, and that people are importing black beef from America into Britain and superimposing American realities on the United Kingdom of Great Britain. These are the people who suggest that we should not discuss race and that we should do away with race and that things at the end of race. Yeah, them kind of vibrations there. Yeah, but the difference between them and the peons and the serfs is that the gentry and the knights have been employed. They have a level of prestige. Yeah, they get positions as advisors to governmental administrations and the like. That's the level that them operate upon. Them big vulture. Yeah, but this is the highest level of the black conservative industrial complex ladder. It may change in the future, but right now this is the highest level. Why? Because the level above gentry within traditional British society is nobility and aristocracy. Yes, nobility and aristocracy, and those levels are preserved for white people. White power is the name of the game. And so there are no black people operating really and truly on those levels. All of the black people, yes, are but clients of this or that white power institutions. As it says here, a knight is the definition of a knight, a man who served his sovereign or lord as a mounted soldier in armor. A man who served his sovereign or lord as a mounted soldier in armor. This is because these are the people that are put out there to go to intellectual war with African community in general, but particularly that element of the African community that is in resistance and rebellion against the white power structure. This is the first line of defense, of intellectual defense. And they're given a lot of resources and profile and platform, yes, to promote these messages by the aristocracy and the nobility in the white power structure. Now, this level of the thing, I am going to identify a few of them, yeah, because of the fact that, again, we are in an election year as far as the political system of the United Kingdom of Great Britain is concerned. And so we're going to just identify a few of the key figures that are on the chessboard, so to speak. One of them is actually not from the UK, but we're going to explain why he's there in a second, all right? So we see listed here, Tony Sewell. We see listed here Kemi Badenoch, and we see listed here Thomas Sowell. Yeah. Now, for those who are not aware, Tony Sewell, I should say, with all due respect, Lord Sewell. Yes, indeed, Lord Sewell. Yes, he's made a lord, brothers and sisters. I'm not sure if anybody was aware of that. For those who are aware of Tony Sewell, you may not be aware of the fact that he's been made a lord. He's now a member of the upper house of Parliament. Lord Sewell, CBE, commander of the British Empire. Lord Sewell, yes, is a scholar, educationalist, and he became very well noted in he's been around a popular figure in Black Britain for a few generations now. Yeah, he used to write for the Voice newspaper, which is the number one most read black newspaper in the UK. Yeah, and became popular for his narratives and assessments and work within the realms of education. And so I remember going to school in the 90s, and this was a time when there was a lot of talk about the failure of Black children within the British education system. And Tony Sewell was the one who was put out there, whilst others were actually looking at what was taking place in British schools. And there were many experts and child psychologists, educational experts in various different fields who were discussing the environment of schooling, the environment of areas with significant Black populations, and so on and so forth, and how these social factors were replicating themselves or representing themselves in the attainment levels of Black children. Tony Sewell was the one who spearheaded the argument that the issue is not schooling or anything to do with like poverty or anything like that. The issue was Black youth culture. Yeah, so he would write articles about the fact that the problem is that the Black children are taking footballs to school rather than books. Yeah, you know, them kind of things. Yeah, you know what I'm saying? And you know, and so the problem for him was Black youth culture. Yes, and that was the vibration. So he developed quite a name for himself in that regard. More recently, he is one of the key authors of the so-called race report that was released a couple years ago, which was the purpose of which was really to deny the fact that institutional racism really exists in Britain. Yes, that was the idea. Now they always say that racism exists, but they define racism as an individual thing. So it's a problem of individuals being, you know, nasty towards other individuals. Yes, that's how they, you know. But as far as the institutional level, doesn't exist. Yeah, and so that was you know, designed to do that. You know, that was, and you know, they did this, and there was a number of other members of the Black conservative industrial complex on that writing team, but he was the most prominent one. You know, within it. Yeah, and that was, by the way, that report was actually commissioned by Boris Johnson. Yes, who was then the prime minister of the country, and so they operated within the auspices because Tony Sewell is associated with one or two conservative think tanks. He's actually a registered Tory, yeah, conservative party member, and is registered and is associated with a number of different think tanks, and so they were also involved in the writing of that report. Yeah, and then you have Kemi Badenoch, who is she was the Minister for Education at one point. I've forgotten her what's her, can somebody remind me of Kemi Badenoch's role in the cabinet right now? I've forgotten what it is. Is it business secretary? I can't remember. Is it business and something secretary? What's Kemi Badenoch's role within the British Parliament as it stands right about now? Somebody remind me in the chat. Yeah, but Kemi is the highest ranking Black conservative MP in the country right about now. And in fact, even though we have our first prime minister of Black and ethnic, BAME extraction, you know, BAME, you know, the Indian man, Asian prime minister, Rishi Sunak. Kemi is the, thank you, Carol, business secretary. Yeah, she's the business secretary. I was correct. Yeah. Yeah. So, and I think she was the Minister for Education at one point as well. And she developed quite a name for herself because of the fact that during Black History Month a few years ago, they had a session in Parliament concerning Black History Month, and her contribution, and she spoke significantly at this particular hearing in Parliament. Her contribution was to bemoan the apparent teaching of quote unquote critical race theory in British primary schools. Yeah, a reality that is a complete fabrication. Right, nobody in British schools is teaching critical race theory, but you know, some of the talking points that actually, if I had more time, I might even play. I would have played the video. Maybe another day we'll go into that. The fact that basically that she wanted to defend Britain from the charge of just being considered to be an enslaver and a colonizer, because her family are migrants from Nigeria, and Nigerians have a barbaric history. I can't remember if you use the term barbaric, but words to that effect. Yeah. So why should we basically run down Britain? When Nigeria, of its own volition, was going with Shagri back in the day. That was her contribution to the thing. So for her service at this level of black conservative industrial complex shenanigans, she has been rewarded with high position in the Conservative Party. And in fact, because Rishi is said to not be doing too well as far as being able to unite his party at the moment, should they lose, the Conservative Party lose, and it is considered to be inevitable that they will lose later this year in the general election, Kemi Badenoch is in fact slated to be in pole position to take over the leadership of the Conservative Party. All right, that's another dynamic. Yeah. One of the features of the black conservative industrial complex is, and I'm going back now to Tony Sewell because I forgot to mention this point, is their attempt to co-opt and distort the history of black political movements. Yeah. So they do that in one of two ways. And Tony Sewell's one is the more creative one. The more obvious one would probably be more represented by Kemi Badenoch. Yeah. Any black uprising can be contextualized as not contextualized, caricatured in a particular way and rejected, yeah, as seen as something that is anti-British and so on and so forth and blah blah, which in many instances that would be true. Yeah. Tony Sewell's got a more creative vibration. Tony Sewell likes to embrace but redefine. So there was a debate that he had whereby the topic was, it hosted by Intelligence Squared. The topic was, it was either Britain or the West pay reparations, yeah, specifically in this instance to black people. And Tony Sewell was against the motion, along with another prominent member of the black conservative industrial complex that you might be frequently seeing. Her name is Catherine Birbal Singh, aka the strictest head teacher in the UK. Yeah. She's up there in the rankings. And his argument against reparations was to define reparatory justice, as a diminishment of African agency and co-opt Marcus Mosiah Garvey into his anti-reparations position. So he would do things like that, right? Because Papa Garvey talked about self-reliance, and somehow he's managed to equate reparatory justice, a just demand for reparations, with a lack of self-reliance. Yeah, this is the talking point that he was, putting forward. I actually watched a lecture from Tony Sewell earlier today where he was speaking at Oxford University as a part of a series called the Pharaoh's Lectures. Yeah, again, this is a series of events that is run by right-wing neoliberal think tanks in the UK, and he was extolling the virtues of not just Bob Marley but Rastafari. Yeah. Yeah, and he managed to put Rastafari within the context of taking the Judeo-Christian tradition, because the black conservative industrial complex takes on this what's the word, affirmation of the Judeo-Christian tradition that is popular in white society. So because the white conservative promote Judeo-Christian values, then the black conservatives have to do the same. But he managed to co-opt Rastafari into this with the idea that the stories in the Bible, such as Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, them going in the fire but never get burnt, yeah, it is kind of a story that speaks to self-reliance and agency, and not discussing the social order, yeah. Right? And all of these things, yeah. Them kind of it was a weird argument, but it's a very because it's not the normal style, yeah. It's a very interesting style that we have, all right. And the other one, who is the odd one out here, is Thomas Sowell. Now you might recognize that Thomas Sowell and Tony Sewell, them names sound similar, and I've always wondered, yeah, about that dynamic. At the same time, Thomas Sowell is by far the oldest individual listed here. He's in his 90s, yeah. Tony Sewell, Lord Sewell is in his 60s, and Kemi Badenoch is, I believe, in her 40s. Yeah. And so he is here because oftentimes, whenever black conservatives from anywhere in the world, the English-speaking world, are speaking, they validate their talking points through a reference to Thomas Sowell. Thomas Sowell. He is, in fact, the patron saint of the black conservative industrial complex. Tony Sewell is the lord of the black conservative industrial complex in the UK. But he doesn't have the international profile of Thomas Sowell. Yeah. And Thomas Sowell is the patron saint. Thomas Sowell, when Kemi Badenoch, who doesn't like to speak in terms of race. And whenever we speak in terms of race, you will hear people like, why are we racializing the thing? She declared and described Thomas Sowell as the greatest black, I think she said, intellectual who has ever lived. Yes, the greatest black intellectual who has ever lived. Yeah, this is what Kemi Badenoch said about Thomas Sowell. Yeah. So the next one I'm going to do then is just explore one aspect of Thomas Sowell. Let's do that right about now. All right. And we're going to read from a Thomas Sowell book. Yeah. Let's read from some Thomas Sowell right about now. All right. All on there. No, me open the wrong thing. All on there. We're going to share a little screen, and we are going to. Oh, why is it not giving me the screen that I want then? Ah, there we go. There we go. There we go. All right. So we're going to read a snippet from Basic Economics. Yeah. Which is one of the Thomas Sowell's most popular books. And it's called Basic Economics, A Common Sense Guide to the Economy by Thomas Sowell. This is the 5th edition. And this book was published in 2015. Yeah. And I'm relatively sure that is not the original published date of the 1st edition. I've got to remember when that actually was, but I'll get that another day. Yeah. But this is a relatively recent book. All right. And this is one of the major books that the black conservative industrial complex champions. Yeah. Whenever we are challenging the economic realities as they face African people in any part of the world, then we'll tell you, say, you must go read, so you must study economics. And when you ask them, well, what book should I read? 9 times out of 10, they're going to tell you Thomas Sowell, Basic Economics. Thomas Sowell, by the way, is another African who is a client of right-wing think tanks. Yeah, his entire career is really, being subsidized by conservative neoliberal think tanks in America. And he's like another one is very popular, discussing geopolitics and social politics as far as African people are concerned. But he is, in fact, trained in economics. I believe that's what his PhD is in. All right. Well, we're going to come back to Thomas Sowell's qualifications not his qualifications, but his standing within academia in a second. But yeah, he described as an economist and a philosopher. All right. But most of his work, though, however, I should say most of his popular work is not actually about economics. A lot of it relates to economics, but it's about social and political commentary. Yes. He writes a lot about history, although he's not a historian. Like much of his history is terrible in that regard. But yeah, so this is the patron saint, yeah, of the Black conservative industrial complex. And I'm gonna just increase the size of this thing a little piece more so we can get into this. And I also want to show you an example of why these people exist. Yeah. So one of the major aspects of the Black conservative industrial complex is the defense, the undying defense of white power. And white power in general, but more specifically, the varying different manifestations, specific manifestation of white power that is known as capitalism in general, and more specifically, free market fundamentalism, liberalism, and or neoliberalism. Okay, and Thomas Sowell is a champion for all of these things. Yeah. Now, in this book, he's making an assessment. Yeah, this is so let me make sure I give you the chapter. Yeah. So under the subheading economic systems, which is under the chapter where he's talking about prices. Yeah. And I want to get the specific name of the chapter. Chapter 2, the role of prices. Yeah, the role of prices. Okay. All right. Now, I will say this. Although this book is called Basic Economics, you will not find this book in any university curriculum whereby economics is being studied. Okay. All right. And there's a reason for that, which we're going to come back to. But in spite of the fact that he's heralded as the greatest Black intellectual, and there are many, yeah, who in the white conservative power structure who laud Thomas Sowell, it's interesting that although he is a qualified economist, and this book has so much praise, that it doesn't feature in the academic realm as a text for students of economics. Yeah, it's an interesting fact. And that's not, and economics is a discipline on the university level that is dominated by what is called neoclassical economics. That is the school of economics that actually promotes what is called free market fundamentalism and neoliberalism. If you don't understand what those terms mean right about now, don't worry, it's not that important, but just understand the dynamics. Yeah. So even though that's the school that Thomas Sowell represents dominates academia as far as the study of economics, his texts are not, in particular, this particular one, which is the most popular economics book that he's written, does not feature. Yes, he's not regarded within the academic realm in that way, even though he's promoted to the public. Yes, in that kind of way. All right. So let's go forward now and read this book. So I said that one of the things that they do is try to redefine and distort African history, particularly revolutionary African history. All right. And in this section, which is under, again, the subheading of economic systems, he says, when many African colonies achieved national independence in the 1960s, a famous bet was made between the president of Ghana and the president of the neighboring Ivory Coast as to which country would be more prosperous in the years ahead. At that time, Ghana was not only more prosperous than the Ivory Coast, it had more natural resources. So the bet might have seemed reckless on the part of the president of the Ivory Coast. However, he knew that Ghana was committed to a government-run economy and the Ivory Coast to a freer market. Pause. So if you don't know what he's talking about, yeah, this is going to confuse you. First and foremost, the president of Ghana at this time is the Asante Kwame Nkrumah. In fact, Ghana independence is tomorrow. More on that later. The president of Ivory Coast, Cote d'Ivoire, at this time is Felix Houphouët-Boigny. Yeah. Now, this story about this bet between them, I don't know exactly where it comes from. I've heard it referenced in certain places. I've seen in one place it was referenced as though it was a debate between that he betted him that a socialist economy would achieve more than a capitalist one, i.e. Nkrumah representing socialism, Boigny representing capitalism. I don't think that narrative is particularly accurate, because in 1957 and 1960, Nkrumah wasn't championing socialism in that level of an explicit way that he's going to be making a debate. As far as in my humble estimation, to that extent, not to say he wasn't discussing socialism or promoting it, but to say that he's going to make it a bet, especially with a nation that, when he was trying to form, a union of African states, that doesn't seem clear to me. Or likely to me, should I say? Yeah. But what is clear is that within the context of West Africa at that time, these two were the most prominent leaders of two different sensibilities in West Africa. Yes. Houphouët-Boigny was a Francophile of the highest order. Yeah. And so when after independence, France, or during the independence era, France was trying to hold on to its colonies, Houphouët-Boigny was a most willing agent in France holding on to Ivory Coast in that regard. And Osagyefo for Kwame Nkrumah was known to be far more, on the train of, we need to do this self-reliantly, and as much as possible, remove ourselves from the control of these colonial powers. Yeah. So that was the dynamic between them. The debate wasn't between government run and free market. Yeah, that was not the debate, right? Between Houphouët-Boigny and the Osagyefo for Kwame Nkrumah. Yeah. So this is a misrepresentation, right? Well, we're going to come back to that in a second. Yeah. So he says, by 1982, the Ivory Coast had so surpassed Ghana economically that the poorest 20% of its people had a higher real income per capita than most of the people in Ghana. This could not be attributed to any superiority of the country or its people. In fact, in the later years, when the government of the Ivory Coast eventually succumbed to the temptation to control more of their country's economy, while Ghana finally learned from its mistakes and began to loosen government controls on the free market, these two countries' roles reversed, and now Ghana's economy began to grow while that of Ivory Coast declined. Okay, so let's look at this now. Yeah, I'm gonna just click so you saw the number 24 there, and so that's the notes, that he's gotten this particular information from. So if I click that 24, I'm supposed to go to where he found the evidence for the claims that he's making, and you can see here the evidence is in this book, Agriculture, Liberalization and Economic Growth in Ghana and Cote d'Ivoire. Yes, and he's used it again up here for the previous one. So the full title includes the dates, 1960 to 1990. All right. So let's look at this. Let's look at this. Yeah. How we're going to go into that book. Oh, by the way, I should also show you that it says page 18. You'll see that it says page 18. Yeah. So we're going to go into that book right here now. All right. And look at what the book actually says. All right. So all on there. Okay, so you can see that now. Right, let's look at what the book actually says. Yeah, the book, so you can see Agriculture, Liberalization and Economic Growth in Ghana and Cote d'Ivoire, 1960 to 1990. The book is written by Robin W.L. Alpine and James Pickett. And they were writing this book on behalf of the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, the OECD. Yeah, ones of you may have heard of this organization. And so the OECD, or the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, is a unique forum where the governments of 37 democracies with market-based economies collaborate to develop policy standards to promote sustainable economic growth. Together with its sister agencies, the International Energy Agency and the Nuclear Energy Agency, the OECD helps the United States. So bear in mind that this is a basically United States governed institution. Yes, the United States and its partners reap the benefits and confront the challenges of a global economy by promoting sound economic policies, freer markets, more efficient use of resources, and better innovation through science and technology. Yeah. So again, don't worry if you don't understand know all the terminology. But when you see things like market-based and freer markets, again, this institution is aligned with what is called neoclassical economics. They promote neoclassical economics, which is the school of thought that Thomas Sowell is actually coming from and advocating, and is the patron saint, the black patron saint of, in this regard. Okay. I should also say that those among the black conservative industrial complex who promote the neoliberal capitalist economy often make of themselves apologists for Western imperialism. There is something about aligning with free market capitalism that also leads you to align with white power Western imperialism as it operates in today's world. Yeah. So when I say that, what I mean now, I'm talking about British and American and French foreign policy to a significant degree. These people either align with or are apologists for. Yes. All right. So we're going to read a section from this book right about now. Okay. And the page number 18, which is the one that he alluded to. Yeah. And what it says is conclusions. Comparative study of the Ghanaian and Ivorian economies in the last 30 years suggests, at least at first sight, that liberalism pays. Yeah. And that's what this institution would like to prove, that liberalism pays. When they say liberalism, what they mean is that you open your economy. Yes. So as far as Africa is concerned, that liberalism means that Africa opens its economy to the rest of the world. And in this instance, the rest of the world really means the West. Yeah. Okay. So that means you open your economy to British and American and French goods, basically. Yeah. Goods and services. Between 1960 and say 1980, Cote d'Ivoire was the much more liberal of the two economies. It was also the much more successful. In the 1980s, however, Ghana became substantially more market-driven than before, while the government in Cote d'Ivoire in turn intervened in the economy more than in earlier years in this decade. The much improved economic performance in Ghana was superior to that of Cote d'Ivoire, though it still did not close the gap between the two countries or restore to Ghanaians the standard of living that had prevailed in 1960. So now notice that, the standard of living that had prevailed in 1960, that is 3 years into Kwame Nkrumah's presidency. Okay, Ghana becomes independent in 1957. And in fact, Nkrumah has significant influence in the government from 1951. Yeah, but I think he was prime minister. Yeah, before that. But that 1960 date, they've actually tacitly admitted that some improvements were going on in Ghana. Yeah, at least up until this point. All right, but they're not going to explicitly state that. On closer examination, however. Now, sorry. Let me pause there for a second. Now, notice they said, the first sentence, comparative study of the Ghanaian and Ivorian economies in the last 30 years suggests, at least at first sight, that liberalism pays. So the quote that Thomas Sowell was used to substantiate his argument, because it was page 18, was taken from that first paragraph that I've just read. Yeah. Okay. So based upon that first paragraph, he's come to the conclusion, or he's promoting the idea, that Cote d'Ivoire was growing faster than Ghana because of its freer market. It had a more liberal market, while government control, what he refers to as government control in Ghana, is what stymied their market, stifled their market. And that's why Cote d'Ivoire outpaced them. And so this first paragraph would seem to substantiate that idea, to quote, at least at first sight. But let's continue. On closer examination, however, hold on there. There's a however. Neither Cote d'Ivoire nor Ghana had clung closely to Adam Smith's prescription. Adam Smith is considered to be the father of economics. He wrote the book, among a couple of others, but the main one is The Wealth of Nations. That's an abbreviated title. And it's considered to be father of the discipline of economics, and also the father of capitalism. Yeah, as or the codification of capitalism as an economic system. All right. Let's see. Okay. On closer examination, however, neither Cote d'Ivoire nor Ghana had clung closely to Adam Smith's prescription for economic growth. So Adam Smith, basically classical liberalism, yeah, lack of less government, interference, let the market do what it wants to do, that type of thing, in countries at low levels of development. This, it may be recalled, was laissez-faire, leave and let alone, in domestic matters, and free trade in dealings with foreigners. And there's some caveats to that, but let's not go into that today. The important responsibilities of the government were external defense, domestic law and order, and production of public goods. Yeah. So notice that even with Adam Smith, there's an idea of production of public goods, and by extrapolation from its importance in Adam Smith's scheme of things, the enforcement of competition. Yeah. Okay. So the government is supposed to defend and deal with domestic law. Now, bearing in mind the fact that most majority black nations on the planet from that time till now do not have a defense force that deals with outside threats for the most part, okay? Usually the defense force, i.e. the army, is protecting the neo-colonial puppets from the people them, all right? So let's go. This is the however section now. So basically what they're saying is, actually, when you look into it, really, neither the Cote d'Ivoire market nor the Ghana market was really free market. Yeah. So by comparison, the Cote d'Ivoire market, they might have let more French goods and services in, but their government and their system wasn't really the real laissez-faire free market thing that they must say, all right, in this thing. Yeah. Okay. To undertake these critical important tasks with the limited resources at its disposal, government should, for this and other reasons, and we're going to go on to page 19, steer clear of direct production and trading. Like those of the 18th century, contemporary poor country administrations have little capacity for production or extensive regulation of the economic activity of others. In this regard, excessive and misdirected intervention has never been absent in the post-independence economies of the two West African countries. Yeah. So when they say excessive and misdirected intervention, that means government. Yeah. So that the government, is intervening in the economy. Yes. And they're saying now that in reality, the government of both Cote d'Ivoire and Ghana intervene excessively into the economies. This is what the source that Thomas Sowell himself used to substantiate his argument is saying. Okay. It goes on. World Bank data revealed that agriculture was heavily taxed in Ghana and Cote d'Ivoire before the 1970s to the tune of respectively 61% and 52%. Yeah. So Ghana taxed agriculture, according to these statistics, at the rate 10% above that or 9% above that of Ivory Coast. Okay. Of value added. Moreover, now all this is not actually the essential point, but it's important information. Yeah? We'll get to the essential point in the next paragraph. All right, or by the end of this paragraph. Yes. Well, where am I? Moreover, a composite measure of distortion based on exchange rates, agricultural prices, protection, and interest rates in 31 countries found that Ghana was the most distorted of the economies in the study, at a time when Cote d'Ivoire was being acclaimed as a liberal miracle. It was 17th in the pecking order. Yeah, so it was very high on the level of what they call distorted, as in companies that had government interference. Ghana was one, Cote d'Ivoire, Ivory Coast was 17. Okay, but whilst it was 17th on this list, it was being promoted to the world, propagated to the world as an example of a free market liberal miracle in Africa. Yeah, that's what's being said here. Though it grew more rapidly in the 1970s than one would have expected from the equation that regressed income in the 31 countries on the distortion index, this better than projected growth was explained by the technical and financial listen carefully now. This better than projected growth, in other words, the fact that Cote d'Ivoire grew in ways that were better than it was projected to have grown economically, as far as GDP and so on is concerned, was explained by the technical and financial assistance that Cote d'Ivoire received from France. It is also possible that the membership of the franc zone helped keep Ivorian inflation low during this period. Let me read that part again. This better than projected growth was explained by the technical and financial assistance that Cote d'Ivoire received from France. It is also possible that membership of the franc zone helped keep Ivorian inflation low during this period. Access to French technical and high-level manpower assistance gave Cote d'Ivoire an advantage over other, sometimes less distorted economies. So even economies that had less involvement from the government in the economy didn't grow as fast as Cote d'Ivoire did. Yeah? Even generally inefficient systems can operate more or less well in the light of the caliber of factor inputs. Most sub-Saharan African countries move more quickly than Cote d'Ivoire to place their nationals on the commanding heights of the economy. This may have met political objectives and may have provided more important learning through doing experience that would bring long-run advantage to these economies. In the short run, however, to buy rather than train high-level skills may result in more rapid growth. In other words, brothers and sisters, whereas in this instance, Ghana did more in terms of training its citizens to administer, and deal with certain levels of economic and political development, Cote d'Ivoire really outsourced those roles to the French. And so it was really the French that was dominating and controlling the Cote d'Ivoire economy, as it does up until this day. And even the free market fundamentalist think tank has to recognize that in the long run, you may yield more benefits from training your own citizenry than outsourcing those tasks to a foreign government and institutions. So we see, and this is one of many examples in this book, whereby the source that is cited doesn't necessarily substantiate the argument that is being made. But 9 times out of 10, the people who read the book now go look upon the source. And there are many instances in this book where that is done. But I've highlighted this not just for the general distortion, because sometimes he's doing this in relation to Soviet Russia or other parts of China or other parts of America or other parts of the world. Yeah. But it's the fact that one of the key dynamics of the black conservative industrial complex is to distort and to denigrate and to neutralize our recognition and interest in our Black Power revolutionary movements that challenge the system. Now, you will notice that there's no argument, yeah, in Thomas Sowell's reading that, for example, spoke about the fact that when he's talking about Ghana's economy, yeah, there's nothing in this reading that detailed the fact, for example, one of the fact that that the Cote d'Ivoire economy was being heavily controlled by France, because of the fact that France was using Cote d'Ivoire and Houphouët-Boigny in particular. By the way, Houphouët-Boigny was in power up until the 1990s. Yes. Supported by France up until the 1990s. So from the 1960s to the 1990s, 30 odd years, this man was in power. Yes. There's no talk of the French involvement. There's also no referencing of the British and American involvement. In other words, the fact that Britain and America had effectively declared economic warfare on Ghana. Why is it not allowing me to share this thing? Anyway, let me just leave it, right? There's no talk of the fact that Ghana was in a position of economic warfare with America in particular and Britain. Yes, at that time. Yeah. So if an economy is not growing and actual economic warfare has been waged on that economy, like, you would factor that into, yes, the extent to which you see it growing or not. Like, why would you not? Yeah. But again, the aim is to distort and hypervalorize Western society and defend the interest of the white power structure in this regard. Brothers and sisters, there's more I could say on this, and I even have I was even going to read from Amos Wilson, but maybe I'll do that later because I realized that I've spoken for quite some time and I want to open up the lines then, yeah? So I'm going to open up the lines now. In fact, what I'll do is I will open up the line. I will send out the link to join the conversation now, and then I'll read the Amos Wilson whilst people are coming through, yeah? So the link is in the chat. The link is in the chat. Yeah, the link is in the chat right here now. I am discussing the classifications of the Black conservative industrial complex, and I hope ones and ones have understood the reasoning thus far. All right, so that's also the reason why you don't find Thomas Sowell listed in academic settings as an economist, because if they did, would be able to have to read through, got you theme thing, you know what I'm saying, and study a little piece more, yeah, general social media stuff. Like a couple years ago, there's a documentary about Thomas Sowell that, like, everybody I know, they were whether they deal with like economic subjects or not, like this came up in their recommendations on YouTube, like everybody may know, yeah. So there's obviously a lot of strength behind this man and what he's doing. All right, so the link is in the chat, brothers and sisters. Feel free to come through. Amos Wilson says the Black neoconservative establishment is used by the white conservative establishment as cannon fodder in defense of white racism and domination against both Black and white liberals and Black nationalists. Black neoconservatives, conservatism has defined itself in opposition to constant call of assimilationists for, and this is that, so that's on the left now. The Black assimilationist is defining a separate or distinct from the Black conservative or neoconservative. Excuse me. For government intervention and legis in the uplift and of the socially depressed and politically oppressed Black masses. It also opposes the belief that government and industry should make special efforts on behalf of Blacks in reparation for harm done in the past resulting from white racism. Black neoconservatives have been ably assisted in this regard by white neoconservatives, conservatives and cryptographers who, due to their ideological compatibility with the values and goals of the white supremacist establishment. This had led to their receiving favorable exposure in mainstream print and electronic media. Bear in mind that Nana Amos Wilson wrote this before 1995, yeah? So look how relevant it still is. Economic media, to their being appointed to influential offices and professional positions such as heads of the EEOC, the Civil Rights Commission, and to the U.S. Supreme courts under conservative administrations, and to departmental chairs at prestigious universities. These well-paid propagandists themselves, the prime beneficiaries of precisely those maximum social, educational, and professional advances resulting from civil rights legislation, Cruz, that's who he's quoting there, paradoxically oppose the very collectivist civil rights activities which have made their occupational positions possible. In other words, African people fight. Let us say we want black representation and black people for their in a position of prestige in the society for make decisions. These are the people that are the beneficiaries of those exact same things, but they don't want those same benefits to be extended to the rest of the black community, is the point that Amos is making. It is ironic that these advocates of quote-unquote self-help among black Americans are themselves a group of client scholars, i.e. mercenary intellectuals. Yes, Thomas Sowell is a mercenary intellectual attached to the umbilical cords of the financial and institutional bastions of the conservative white American power establishment, like the Heritage, Schaeff, Bradley, and Olin Foundation. I believe Thomas is Heritage. He's either Heritage or Manhattan Institute. One of the two. Yeah. Foundations. One of the major functions of these institutions is to fund the work of both blacks and white critics of black struggles for civil rights, racial equality, and affirmative action, and of the Afrocentric movement. Consequently, black neocons essentially serve to rewrite traditional white conservative and racist ideological canards, trying to win for them legitimacy in the African community by making it appear that these warmed over self-serving white supremacist contentions originate from their own independent minds. The central function and role of the black neoconservative is to put a black face on white power, to put a black face on the power of the Bakra, the Mozungu, the Obruni, the Oyinbo, brothers and sisters, that them differ. And with that, the link is in the chat. And I suppose, not unsurprisingly, Kofi Campbell has taken up the charge. Go ahead, Kofi.
Yo, respect. Good evening. Yo, you can talk out the things there. You one whole hour. Yo, the amount of fallacies.
It's actually nearly 2, but go ahead.
Yo, the amount of fallacies mere this evening, Star. I don't know where to begin, but all right. So the last thing we bring up with Ghana and Ivory Coast. You're saying that France helped Ivory Coast to have a better economy?
No,
so much better.
I'm saying
the bottom.
I'm saying that the source that Thomas Sowell used said that.
Okay, good. Right. So the reason why Ivory Coast outperformed Ghana is not policies, but is France help them?
The opening of your economy to France is a policy. So there's not a distinction between policy and French help. The French were dictating the policies. Yeah, that is the point. So and it's not just the. Let me clarify the argument once again. Yeah, for those who didn't hear. All right. There's a book by the name of Basic Economics written by Thomas Sowell, yes, that puts forward the argument that Cote d'Ivoire surpassed Ghana between 1960 as an economy, between 1960 and 1980, because its market was freer than that of Ghana's.
And yes? That's not true.
Sorry, I am saying that the book that he used to validate his point doesn't actually say that in absolute terms. It says the Cote d'Ivoire market appeared freer and it was being promoted to the world as a miracle free market success, but in fact what it was being promoted as was not what it was behind the scenes. And in reality, this is what the book says now, the book that Thomas Sowell cited. In reality, a lot of its success was based upon the fact that it was outsourcing a lot of the running of its economy to France, and the fact that the stability within its economy was to a significant degree resultant from the fact that its currency was pegged to the French currency in a way that Ghana's currency was not pegged to any.
Hold on, man. You talk all the time. Hold on, man. Because I repeat what you did say before. So again, you mix. You're not understanding when we talk about economics and policies. There are no absolutes here, right? Ghana was not an absolute socialist country. USSR wasn't even an absolute socialist country. America and Cote d'Ivoire wasn't an absolute capitalist country. We're talking in relative terms. And in relative terms, Ghana's economy was freer. I think that's what that's the word he used, freer. So we're talking relative, not absolute terms. And if you don't understand that basic economics, then you're going to get misled to think that, Ivory Coast wasn't capitalist, wasn't laissez-faire, so therefore, laissez-faire economics can't do X, Y, and Z.
But you know.
Hold on, Shaka, allow me to finish, because you talk enough. Hold on. So, you have to understand that about policy. It's not absolute, we're talking relative. And relatively, Ghana was more state-led than the Ivory Coast. If you're going to say now, well, the reason why Ivory Coast beat out Ghana is because France helped them. Then you're going to say, all right, France helped them to have a stable monetary policy, which is necessary for economic growth and development. And to the point where they actually benefited from that, where to the point of bottom 20% better off than Ghana. So what you really say is that French colonialism helped Ivory Coast to outperform socialist Ghana. I thought the French were exploiting the Ivory Coast. You understand? And if you're going to say, well, it's because Ghana went socialist and radical, and that's why, and it was sabotage, then why nobody never sabotaged Julius Nyerere experiments? Who sabotaged Israel experiment with socialism? When that failed, is sabotage too. And another thing you mentioned with this foreign help, that's the whole point of trade and economics. Is an exchange, is an autarky where you're going to cut off from the capitalist West and go on your own. That's rubbish. In America, it was the British who established them capital markets. In America never had no capital markets. And the capital markets is important to an economy that helped in the industrialization process. So trade and the exchange of expertise and cadre of engineers, etc. These things get exchanged between countries all the time. In Germany, it was the British engineers and technocrats that helped to industrialize money. And then in Russia, it was during the Tsarist period, it was the British and the Germans who helped industrialize over there. And then even in Japan, again, it was trade, more open trade with the West allowed Japan. Remember, so Japan was isolated. They weren't being exploited by the capitalist West, but yet still they were poor until they opened up during the Meiji period. Again, before you jump on that, we're not talking absolute terms. We're talking relative to the economy that existed before, where even internal markets were suppressed in Japan before the Meiji period. And when you suppress internal markets, that will have an effect on your economic development and stay poor. So, yeah, you can point on Ivory Coast and say, yeah, it's white people help them do X, Y, and Z. But as you well and know, say, from the history of ancient Kemet, come right up to the Moors and the Ottomans and whatever, you know, say development and civilization is a cross-cultural thing. There's no autarky here where you can cut off yourself from the rest of the world. Well, you can do that like North Korea, and then you suffer the consequences for that. I mean, you can't ball say Cuba is being stifled, etc., with the embargo, and then turn around and say, well, the capitalist West is exploitative and countries are better not trading with the capitalist West. That's a blatant contradiction. Why are you complaining about the embargo in Cuba then, if being open to the capitalist West is such a bad thing? Why was it such a bad thing for Hong Kong? Hong Kong did more open than Ivory Coast, and it benefited. So I mean, yeah, that's one. And another thing when you bring up, yeah, that's one. Another thing when you bring up, right? I can't even remember. You mentioned.
All right, well, I'm going to respond to that one, yeah. So because, all right, so first and foremost, yeah, you've evidently been well trained by the patron saint, Thomas Sowell, because half of what you said, me never say. And for the most part, I'm going to ignore the strawmans that don't relate at all to anything that I've said. So, for example, I wasn't speaking about Cuba at all. So I'm now going on Cuba. Yeah, that's just wasn't the subject matter. All right. So, oh, by the way, sorry, I have neglected to come to the chat. So, by the way, big yourself, Sekou. Yeah, Mr. Sekou in the chat. If you would like your comment to be read out, or you have a question that you want to be read out, please at gotkushTV, so I can differentiate between the quite vigorous conversation that is taking place in the chat right about now, and whatever else is and comments that you want to be read out. Please at gotkushTV. Yeah. So I can read out your comment and or question. The link is in the chat. The link is in the chat. So if you would like to come live, you can come live by joining the conversation by clicking the link in the chat right about now. Today we've been discussing the Black conservative industrial complex and their machinations. Yeah. And so I gave some examples a minute ago, and Coffee has come to challenge me on one or some of the examples that I gave and some examples that I didn't even give. But you can feel free to do the same. And click the link as it stands, yeah, in the chat. Yeah. I'm just gonna deal with these comments, Coffee, and I'm gonna respond to your points. All right. So the comments read: Kushti says, "Got Kush TV on fire, on fire tonight." Summing them up to tea. Yeah, man. You have to sum them up, you know what I mean? Classify them and all them thing there. Anthony McPhail says, "Got Kush TV Alafia. Alafia Ati Ibukun." Peace to the panel and the chat. Giving thanks once again, brothers and sisters. If you would like your comment read out, please at gotkushTV. The link is in the chat. The link is in the chat. And you can click that link and come live as Brother Coffee has done. Okay, so first and foremost, yeah, let me repeat. It's not me saying nothing. Yeah, it's not me saying nothing. All right. Let me go back to the text, the illustrious text that you won't find in any academic reading list, yeah, on basic economics that I was reading from. Okay, let me go to the text, because the issue is whether I'm speaking in absolute terms or not. All right, and let's see if it was in fact me that was speaking in absolute terms. Yeah, let's see if that's the charge that one can levy at ShakaRa in this time right now. Okay, when many African colonies achieved national independence in the 1960s, a famous bet was made with the president of Ghana and the president of the neighboring Ivory Coast as to which country would be more prosperous in the years ahead. At that time, Ghana was not only more prosperous than the Ivory Coast, it had more natural resources. So the bet might have seemed reckless on the part of the president of the Ivory Coast. And again, I'm questioning his characterization of this conversation, but that's not necessarily the most important issue. He says, however, he knew that Ghana was committed to a government-run economy and Ivory Coast to a freer market. By 1982, the Ivory Coast had so surpassed Ghana economically that the poorest 20% of its people had a higher real income per capita than most of the people in Ghana. So he has made the absolute statement that it has to do with government run versus freer market. That's
not absolute, my youth.
Of course it is. Right? has
Oh,
defined
God.
the success of Ghana relative to Ivory Coast based upon the freeness of their market. There is no other variable. He hasn't
Virgin.
one second.
Virgin.
He hasn't included any other variable in this statement. None whatsoever. It's absolute. Freer,
Free.
less free. That's it. No,
Oh,
sorry. Freer, government run. And we know how words work, yeah. So you say freer as opposed to free.
oh,
When you're
Jesus. Okay,
but it doesn't
okay.
matter.
So when you hear,
One second. There is no other variable in this statement. This could not be attributed to any superiority of the country or its people. In fact, in later years, when the government of Ivory Coast eventually succumbed to the temptation to control more of their economy, their country's economy, while Ghana finally learned from its mistakes and began to loosen government controls on the market. So now Ghana loosens government controls. So now Ghana has the freer market, therefore it begins to...
hold on.
The only variable here is the supposed freeness of the market. That is the only variable here. That is an absolute statement. One second. The market doesn't have to be quote unquote absolutely free for the statement to be absolute. And in reality, there is no such thing as an absolutely free market as these people define it. It doesn't exist, and it has never existed. So of course, it's not going to be a free market in a true sense.
Who said that you have absolute free market?
Because they free. I didn't say that. I didn't say anybody did. I'm making a statement because the free market in the absolute sense. Because a free market in the absolute sense has never existed. So of course,
who said it did exist?
1 second,
who
please.
said it did exist?
You will notice that I never said anybody said that it didn't.
So why you bring it up? Other than a straw man, why you bring it up for?
If you don't understand why I brought it up, then that's up to you. I'm not going to explain it. I think brothers and sisters will understand why it was brought up. All right. I don't feel the need to explain that. That's the first point. Yeah. So the argument, the point here is that the argument that the patron saint, yes, Thomas Sowell is making, yes, doesn't in fact even line up with the source that he used to make the claim, because the source that he used to substantiate the claim that he made says in that really when people were lauding this this economic miracle, this free market miracle in Cote d'Ivoire, the extent of its growth does not equate with the level of freeness that its market was at the time. Yes, the two don't add up. In fact, one of the things, and the fact that they put in the thing, yeah, was the fact that effectively the economy had the veneer of stability and growth because of the extent to which it was a client of the French. And we're not talking here about trade, yeah, like the Cote d'Ivoire was trading with France.
Hold on there. Hold on.
You made the point. Allow me to respond. Yes, and you spoke at length.
But you're going to filibuster again.
Coffee, you spoke at length. Yes, you spoke at length. All right. We're not talking about trade. Every African nation, every majority black nation, the world, whether they were revolutionary or stool pigeon puppets, yes, opened themselves to trade with the rest of the world.
That's not true. That's a lie.
Every single one. Yes, I am stating that as a categoric, absolute fact. There is no African nation and no African nation in the Caribbean that promoted absolute closed door policy with now trade with nobody.
I never said that. You said all of them. All of them were open the same way.
Every African nation, whether they were revolutionary or stool pigeon puppets, opened themselves to trade with the rest of the world. Every single one of them. So we are not talking about trade. What happened in the instance of Cote d'Ivoire, and Cote d'Ivoire is the model case in this instance, is that the French, as a result of trying to hold on to their former colonies, instituted what was called an independence package, or in some instances it was called literally a continuation of colonization package, whereby the governments of the newly independent nation signed a deal, yes, whereby their currency would be pegged to the French franc at that time, now the euro, would be governed by the euro. They wouldn't print their own money. Their foreign reserve would be stored in France, and if they wanted to access their foreign reserves, they would have to apply for a loan from the French government to central bank, to access their own. Listen. No, I'm not. You made the point about this idea about every nation trading. I was not challenging trading. I was talking about the extent to which the Ivory Coast economy was a client of the French economy, and the extent to which the French government and its institution were in fact running the Ivory Coast economy, the Côte d'Ivoire economy. Yes, that's what we're talking about.
Okay,
again, you have learned well, yes, from your master Thomas Sowell, because you are trying to distort the history as I've laid it out here today. So allow me to finish. All right. Where was I up to? They had to apply for a loan, and we know that in this system, yeah. When you get a loan from a bank such as the French Central Bank, it comes with interest. Effectively, the people of the French-speaking African nations were paying to spend their own money on the international market. They were paying France to spend their own money on the international market. France also had first right of refusal in relation to any natural resources found in these nations. There was about 13 or 14 of them. The only government that was formally colonized by France to completely tell them for in terms that and not starting the deal was the government of Sékou Touré in Guinea. Yes, and he suffered economic and other kinds of warfare as a result. Then what happened was when Olympia, yes, in Togo, although he agreed to the agreement, yes, decides to hold on, but maybe a year or two into his premiership. Listen, yeah, this French currency business, we don't want to deal with it. It's called the CFA franc, by the way, brothers and sisters, or the franc CFA. Yes, we don't want to deal with it. We're gonna print our own money. Olympia decided to print more money in Togo and was assassinated as a result by agents of France. we're not talking about no trade around here. We are dealing with trade. No. Yeah, this is what we're talking about. The point I'm making is that everything that I have described, and by the way, the last point is, I said, the analysis of Sewell doesn't take into consideration the involvement of America in Ghana, the involvement of Britain in Ghana on the economic level, because Nkrumah was attempting to trade with them at this point. And it also doesn't take into consideration the involvement of France in Côte d'Ivoire. So he paints the picture that the relevant difference is between a quote-unquote freer market and a quote-unquote government-run market. Yes, that is the point. But what he also distorts is the fact that a decade later, Nkrumah was overthrown in 1966.
Boy, I tell you, boy. Let me respond to it, sir. First of all, if you will say,
sorry. Thank you very much. I'm speaking. All right. The reality is this, yeah. Côte d'Ivoire, a decade later. So one of the factors that contributed to the decline of Ghana's economy, and by the way, there's somebody else on the panel, so I also have to get to them.
After you talk about my time.
It's not your time. We are talking about. You're not on a time around here. Yeah, you spoken.
No,
you spoken.
But I want to reply to your foolishness.
Get an opportunity after the next person speaks. All right. The point is that one of the things that he doesn't highlight here. So let me just bring this up. All right. Brother Seko, I'm coming to you. Just bear with me. This it says, in fact, in later years, when the government of Ivory Coast eventually succumbed to the temptation to control more of their country's economy, while Ghana finally learned from its mistakes and began to loosen government controls on the market, these two countries' roles reversed, and now Ghana's economy began to grow, whilst that of Ivory Coast declined. One of the reasons why Ghana's economy took a hit in the mid 1960s was because of the crash in the prices of cocoa, and Nkrumah was using the cocoa yield and the profits from the cocoa to pay for to trade with the rest of the world, and also because he he took out a loan and was paying back the loan with the proceeds from the cocoa. But that was negatively affected by the fact that the price in cocoa crashed on the international market. Yeah. There's a lot of reasons for why that was. I'm not going to go into the details of that now. At the same time, Cote d'Ivoire was the beneficiary, yes, because both of these nations are cocoa trading nations with the rest of the world. And Cote d'Ivoire's trading cocoa with the rest of the world went up as Ghana's declined because of the way the foreign powers, particularly the Western powers, were playing with the trading relationship at that time. But what he doesn't go into is the fact that the cocoa crop crashed again about a decade later in the 1970s. And he gives the impression here that the troubles of Cote d'Ivoire began when the government of Ivory Coast succumbed to the temptation to control more of its country's economy, when in reality, the cocoa crop crashed and the economic difficulties in Cote d'Ivoire began before Houphouët Boigny decided to start trying to control the price of the cocoa and make other interventions into the economy. So it wasn't his intervention that caused the decline. His intervention was a response to the decline. Yeah, but you will get a different impression if you read Basic Economics by Thomas Sowell, a distortion of the history, which is not uncharacteristic of Thomas Sowell's literature. Brother Sekou.
Yes, peace and blessing, brother.
Greetings, my brother. How are you? Good to hear your voice.
Yeah, good to see you, man. I'm enjoying it.
And you've been doing good work, my brother, in back on the social media sphere, on the Sarnetiverse and these things. So we appreciate your work.
Yeah. Thank you so much, man. I just came up recently to destroy all the foolish argument they've been having recently.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah, so time to time I just show my face. Yeah.
Go ahead, my brother. What's your contribution to the conversation?
I'm enjoying your discussion here. Very, very deep analysis. I'm not good with economy. Actually, I'm not good with numbers. Capitalism, socialism, this is not my thing. But I've read some important books on these topics.
Yes, sir.
The first one is the book written by our brother from Guyana, How Europe Underdeveloped Africa.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Where he actually tried to discuss the issue of capitalism and how it affected the growth of the continent. Now, to be specific on the topic you are discussing, on free market or not, I believe is a myth. The few myths they sell out there that your economy can develop if you become a free market, or if you are a democracy, then you will become a very good country. These are the myths that they sell to us. The miracle of Cote d'Ivoire, the so-called economic miracle of Cote d'Ivoire from the 80s to the 90s, like you rightly said, it was because the French got involved. They did there was a monopoly going on. They actually took over everything. The Ivorians were not benefiting. People don't know that. They thought maybe the Ivorians benefited from that so-called Ivorian miracle. If you go to Cote d'Ivoire, most of the properties are owned by French people. What happened was the French billionaires were transplanted into Abidjan, and they took over all the sectors. They took over the land, and they owned the cocoa, and France was deciding the price of the cocoa, not Cote d'Ivoire. Right. So it was a fake economic miracle that was not based on industrialization.
Sorry, Sekou. Just repeat that. Who was deciding the price of the cocoa?
France was deciding the price of the cocoa, even until
France.
This day.
Okay, that's very. Anyway, sorry. Go on. I'm just emphasizing that point.
It's a myth that people. In fact, if you want to know that, there is a video clip. Which, if I knew this was going, I will bring it for you. The first president, Félix Houphouët-Boigny, was complaining that he wants to change the price of cocoa, and France refused. He's complaining in the 80s. It wasn't a free market. It was actually France was.
It was a neo-colonial market.
It was a colonial market.
Okay. Sorry, go ahead, go ahead.
The idea that comparing what happened in Cote d'Ivoire and then comparing to what happened in Ghana, I think we have to be factual here about the political climate. the sabotage that was going on. We know what happened when Kwame Nkrumah was trying to build industry. He was focused on industrialization. He wanted to build dam and other things to boost the industry, and they made sure they strangulated that. They made sure that he doesn't get the capital he needed to start those industry. And they knew he would have surpassed Cote d'Ivoire very far, because Cote d'Ivoire was not thinking of industrialization. They were thinking of selling raw material, which is not a good economy. That economy is going to die. It doesn't matter how you do it. But when you industrialize, you are likely to have, because it's about production. Every economy, if you cannot produce, forget about it. You know, raw material will never have. So Cote d'Ivoire is playing game with Ivory Coast. They have, that's why any president in Ivory Coast that doesn't play along, immediately you see Cote d'Ivoire go back to zero, like Laurent Gbagbo. We saw the economy of Cote d'Ivoire go down flat in few months because he decided not to dance with the French system. Now, right as I speak to you, the French own the port in Cote d'Ivoire, Bolloré. This is the business, the Bolloré and Bouygues. They own the seaport. They own all the cocoa. Cote d'Ivoire government does not decide how much to sell their cocoa until today, as I speak to you. So that's not developed. They're just selling lies out there to the people, saying this. Cote d'Ivoire, the Ivorians own nothing. Even their land, they don't own it. It belongs. Their president made a policy called La terre appartient à celui qui le met en valeur. That's the phrase they use. It means the land belongs to whoever can put value into it. So the French came in. They said, we got the money, so we can put value. So they own the land. How would the poor man in the village who comes, how does he put a value to the land? He doesn't have machines, doesn't have the capital. He can't employ people. So they took the dispossessed, they took the land from them and gave it to some workers from Burkina Faso. They were working for the French. That's how Cote d'Ivoire was making its money. So Liberia has been free market. Number one. Where did it take us? If you want to do a case study of free market, use Liberia. Okay, President Tubman call it open door policy. You can Google it, open door policy. And what happened? I'm coming. Let me finish. The open door policy, what happened? We have Firestone become monopolize our rubber in Liberia. Until today, they built no factory. And they were happy with Liberia. They put our name everywhere. Free market. But America was deciding the price of the rubber. They were controlling everything. So this is all fake. For me, we have to go for industrialization. I don't care what economic system we use. When we industrialize, then we can even decide how. It doesn't matter what policy we use, but industrialization is the main key that the IMF and the World Bank is trying that we should not go into that. So that's all I wanted to say. I'm not going the economic analysis and all of that, but
no. There's no need. There's no need, brother Circle. Just to clarify, we actually wasn't discussing socialism versus capitalism. I was actually given a breakdown of what I refer to as the Black conservative industrial complex. We're about to have we're going to be having an election later this year, as far as the UK is concerned, and. I was just basically highlighting the fact that there are a lot of these right-wing conservative Black people that have been given profile in the media and in the government recently, and what the dynamics of that are. And so in light of that conversation, a lot of these people look up to Thomas Sowell. And so I was given an example of Thomas Sowell's book, Basic Economics. By the way, like having read most of that book at this point, the book is if you're looking to learn about economics, it's not a very good book to read, but it is a very good book to read if you're looking to get to understand the basic justifications and argumentation of free market fundamentalism, if anybody's interested in that kind of thing. But I was using the example of how these Black conservatives distort and attempt to attack, neutralize, or malign Black power movements of any description. And so the idea, because he doesn't say it explicitly, but he uses the example of Ghana, which is really under Nkrumah he's speaking about, and Ghana under Hifet Boigny in favor of Hifet Boigny. So the argument was not necessarily about capitalism versus socialism and kind of things. It just so happens that we have an apologist for free market white supremacy on the panel. So that you know, as them say, you know, if you throw a stone in a pig pen, the one we're screaming is the one we get the lick. So and the sort of thing goes. So yeah, that wasn't what the conversation was about. So it was about history and distortions of history in the service and favor of white supremacist talking points, if that makes sense. Yeah,
absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah.
Your point are very good. I can see when you read the book, I saw the point you were making, because what he's saying exactly, and that's not what the source is saying. I think
the source doesn't say that. Yeah, that is the point I was making. Even the source he used, doesn't say that. And the source he used is ideologically aligned with him.
The source does not say that Ghana had a less freer economy than Ivory Coast, or Ivory Coast had government-led development. The idea that the French determine the price of cocoa, and this determines the fluctuation in fortunes of Ivory Coast, is really ridiculous and stupid. So based on that logic,
so you notice that nobody actually said that, right?
Who control the price of cocoa? Who control? When you say it, allow me to finish now. Allow me to finish.
Sorry, it was.
Allow me to finish.
You interrupted myself and Robert Sekou speaking, and Thomas Sowell is a demon is actually in the panel as well. So I got to get to them, right? At the same time, it was not said in like this unnuanced line. France was controlling the price of cocoa, and that's what led to Côte d'Ivoire's success. That's not what was said, but it is a fact that the price of the cocoa as far as Côte d'Ivoire was concerned, was being dictated to them by France. That's not unusual. The World Trade Organization.
So therefore, the World Trade based on your logic, based on your
prices to this day, that's a fact.
Based on your
no amount of free market fundamentalist theory.
Based on your logic,
going to overturn the fact that France was dictating the price of the cocoa. That's
okay. So therefore, based on your logic, France determined a high price for Ivory Coast and allowed them to grow and take advantage of those high prices. And all of a sudden, on a whim, France said, all right, no more, hold on, allow me to finish, and take your argument to its logical conclusion. So therefore, all of a sudden, France said, you know what, no more high prices, low prices, and it's that leak Côte d'Ivoire, and that's why Ghana passed them out in terms of economic growth. That's a really stupid argument to make. Just like when Sekou said Liberia,
Coffee. We cannot have an intelligent conversation if you're misrepresenting arguments, right? It doesn't make any sense.
Allow me to finish and then you respond.
I'm not responding to you. I'm simply saying that
so allow me to finish then. Allow me to finish.
Hold on. I have to get somebody else in. You have to wait.
Yo, it's a massive. All right.
Someone is a demon.
Yeah, man. Bless up Shaka panel and channel. As per usual, I have the ahistorical pseudo-economist character to defend these type of things. It's par for the course. So I just want to say I agree with you in that you weren't trying to make any of the arguments per se that Kofi is assigning to you. Is really just a matter of pointing out that's so disingenuous, and him do this with everything. Anything you hear him say can count on him to do something like this, which is why my name is Thomas Sowell. It's a demon. Now, separate from that, I hear Kofi try and make the argument that Cuba being under embargo should be ignored or something like that when it comes to their economic growth, as if for them to be communist means that they are anti-trade. So a country's communist means that they don't trade, rather than that there should be a planned economy and trade could be planned, right? So, we just want to point out that fallacy or misrepresentation as well, which is par for the course when you're dealing with these people. The next thing, though, I did want to talk about was the Jamaica election, you know, that just got by, the local government one, since it's free topics. It took almost a week for them to count the votes and thing, and it's like only 200,000 people vote. So it looking very sad over there in Jamaica, you know, particularly when we consider Haiti too, and what going on over there, because that's another topic as well. Cause
100%.
the gang them take over the whole country. I still feel like, although it look bad, you kind of need the Kenyan them and potentially a Caribbean coalition to go in there and try help secure things. Like getting from bad to worse over there, you know what I mean? And the free market economy that them administering those seem to be saving them either. We can probably discuss that, as well as, you know, I want to hear from Kofi still who him supporting in the American election, cause I hear him say him no longer supporting Trump. And then the next time I hear him say him supporting Trump, but not because of economic policies. So that's what I personally want to hear from him, but, you know, make sense of that.
So,
we'll come to that. Kofi, you get an opportunity to answer that question in a second. Let me just deal with a couple of points that the Reggie made. As far as the Jamaican election, that was interesting. It was interesting to me as well how long it took them for contact the vote there. And from what I heard, the last vote is that it's a minor win for the PNP on the local level. Am I correct?
It's confusing, but them officially come out and say the JLP win, like them take more parishes, but by popular vote, them say PNP win, cause them get more actual votes.
Okay. Which means that the general election would suggest that the general election is going to sway in favor of the PNP. In that regard. So we see how it goes. You know me, I'm not inspired by either of these parties. As far as Haiti is concerned, I need to study this more. But some of the gangs what they're calling gangs in Haiti are actually resistance movements. Yeah. And then some of them are obviously funded by the CIA. So there's a whole heap of different dynamics that need to be gone through where that is concerned. You know what I'm saying? Now, I would support a Caribbean intervention as long as it wasn't Caribbean as a client of America. Yeah, if it's self-reliant and we're going there to conflict resolve and assist and them kind of things there, that would be a beautiful thing. I don't think that the Caribbean is in a position to do that at the moment, because it will only do so under the what's it called, instruction and with the permission of the American government and American intelligence agencies. So that's the problem that I have there. But we do need to get more into the specifics of what going in Haiti. So we will do that at a future point. But you always raise it, so I give thanks for you continuing to raise it. And I will now give way to allow my name.
Yeah, man.
To answer your question.
Yeah, man. Let's address the foolishness about Liberia being a free market economy. The extent to which an economy is free market is the extent to which property and individual rights are respected with a stable and objective judiciary system. And when a government like Liberia tear up the contract it had with the UNIA and sell the land or give the land to Firestone below market price, that's not capitalism. So that's a stupid argument to say that Haiti and Liberia are capitalists when those governments don't respect the property rights of the inhabitants. Never did, and based on the situation, both countries, it won't look like it will ever will. Next, in terms of the source were so well used. The source that so well used did not deny that Ivory Coast had a freer economy than Ghana. What it said is that both countries had government intervention, which Sowell never denied. And it also said that both countries weren't laissez-faire. Duh, obviously. So again, the source don't contradict Sowell, but it end up validating what Sowell said, that the freer economy is the more you're going to grow and develop. And if you're going to say, well, is the French is the reason why Ivory Coast have was so much better off than Ghana. That 20% of its the bottom 20% richer than most of Ghana. Then we would have think to find that in the other countries, other francophone countries, Senegal was like that, Togo was like that. I mean, why is it that only Ivory Coast was special based on the performance vis-a-vis Ghana? If it was really the French fault, then we would find. Stop watching the TV now, man. It's disturb the thing. Yeah. See, if it was really the French cause it, then the French already caused the bottom 20% to be richer than Ghana in the other countries that Togo and with the other one the name with the other francophone country there, and that wasn't taken over by socialists, because you're going to say that, well, if it took over by socialists, then France going to sabotage it and they're not going to perform. But Senegal wasn't taken over by socialists. Senegal have bottom 20% of Senegal is richer than Ghana. Where is that? No, see, obviously it had to be some other factors that explain Ivory Coast outperforming Ghana. And this thing about cocoa and industrialization and searching for capital. Ghana was following the Soviet model of state-led industrialization and looking for outside capital, whereas the Soviet Union could source capital from America. You going to argue say Ghana couldn't source capital because America wants to sabotage Ghana. But why America didn't want to sabotage the Soviet Union? America give them capital. America even give them food when they starve over there. And yet still, them industrialization efforts, what they become of it? It imploded, even though them achieved tremendous growth, even though the Soviet Union living standards was higher than the Tsarist living standards. But these metrics aren't sustainable if you have more government interventions in the economy. And that's what the empirical evidence show. So the more capitalistic a country is the higher the GDP per capita, is the higher the media income.
Yeah, man, let me jump in right there, so now, Kofi, because Cuba have a higher GDP per capita than Jamaica, right. And them under embargo before we get independent. Calm down. So number one, as I explained before, the past of Jamaica, when Jamaica experimented with socialism and the economy tanked in the 1970s, Cuba had aid from the Soviet Union, so their experiment never mash up Cuba totally like how. So why 40 years after free market life was still
Hold on, comrade. Good, right? So when we start to catch up in the 80s, yeah, PNP they come to power in the 90s, and then they implement the market reform where Blinds never did want to do, right? Or never did want to do to the extent that America did want him to be, or Reagan did want him to be. PNP implemented, and PNP during the PNP 90s, them actually hold on, them pass out Cuba. The reason why Cuba did after the Soviet Union imploded was because they never get the aid from the Soviet Union. And without the Soviet Union aid, what did they have to do? Implement market reform. The very same exploitation tourist sector is what Cuba did develop and the market reform allow them. So,
that's a question.
Yeah.
Who has the freer market, Jamaica or Cuba?
In Jamaica, I don't know the stats for two of them.
Oh my God. Oh my God, son. Yeah.
move on. Let's move on. All right, brothers and sisters. One of the things that you'll find here.
Wait, answer the question now. Answer the question. Who are the free market?
I asked the question. Don't worry about it. It's
Who are
fine.
the free market?
That's your homework. I'll leave you to figure it out.
Bahamas have a free market than Cuba.
I will leave you to figure that out.
Jamaica import duties are still high. The debt to GDP is still high.
All right, I'm moving on now. One of the things that you will find, brothers and sisters, is that when you present real history, like the neoclassical school of economics, and like Brother Sekou said, I'm not an economist, but I do study the work of economists, and economic theories. I'm not a mathematician or nothing like that, but concepts I understand and can get, and I'm very interested in. One of the things that I realized early is that when you present actual history, as an empirical history, to a neoclassical economist, those who promote free market fundamentalism, they tend to rebut you with theory, with the idea that what you are saying actually happened in history could not have happened because it goes against the theory of free market fundamentalism. And most of what you just heard was that. You also heard, as I said earlier, that those who propagate the free market fundamentalist ideology tend to be the apologists for Western imperialism. It just happens, right? To be the case. The problem with that is that you cannot rebut an argument about what actually happened in history based upon something that you read in a textbook about how economics is supposed to run.
What?
So the idea, that France, for example, was controlling and made Côte d'Ivoire a client state, is the truth. France was also doing this in a number of different African nations, in French and Central Africa, most of the nations that were formerly colonized by France. And in all of those nations, their currency was more stable as far as the metrics of the global economy is concerned, because of the fact that their pegging to the French franc and then euro maintained a certain level of stability. Why? Because the French franc and euro was more stable on the international market. So all of them had economic indicators that were above the economic indicators of many of the nations that surrounded them. That's just a generic thing. They all had their different problems, right? At the same time. But coming back to what Sekou said a minute ago about Houphouët Boigny being on video complaining about the fact that Mwan changed the price of the cocoa, but the French won't allow him to. One of the factors, that is involved in that, I've lost the point. The French cocoa, they wouldn't allow him to change the price of the cocoa. Where was I going? It will come back to me. Brothers and sisters. But the point I'm making right now is simply the fact, that you cannot combat the economic realities of what has taken place, historically speaking, with economic theory. And that's what they tend to do.
Right.
Yes?
Yeah, I'll add little to what you're saying, brother.
By the way, sorry, can I just say that Cuba actually has a higher GDP than Bahamas.
GDP per capita, man. Listen carefully next time. Per capita, we are talking about Mayo. Trust me. Yeah, shit. But based on what you say about the currency, hold on. Based on what you say about the currency.
Go ahead. Sorry. Sekou has spoken. Go ahead.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. What I was just trying to say, I said these neoclassical economists, they've ruined a lot of African countries and even countries in the Caribbean, because they are playing to a rule that they did not make. It's like you are in a game and you are playing a match and you did not you don't control the rules of this game, and people who are controlling the rule of this game are actually bent to cheating you, and they try to just go to the university, come out and repeat the same theory. For example, when we look at what is going on in these post-independent African countries, we saw Guinea with Sekou Touré. He started up doing well. Even when he refused to join the CFA, he created his own currency. We saw what the French did. It's not about whether the person practices socialism or not. They went and sabotaged the economy. They flooded the economy with fake currency. French did that. So
sorry, Saku, just to extend upon your point, before leaving the country, because he refused to sign this deal, they destroyed infrastructure in the country.
Infrastructures, yes.
Right, you know what I'm saying? Like destroyed that pulling phones out of wall, mashing up roads and railway lines, buildings, much of the place, like caused significant amount of damage in the nation before they left, because he wouldn't sign it.
The system is rigged. The system is rigged. All the African countries, all these so-called, our country, Liberia, was led by a former a lady who has worked with IMF, Ellen Johnson Sirleaf. Okay, what has she done? She came into power. What has she done? When the IMF come and you have economic issue, they say, we come to help you. Honestly, they will never tell you to industrialize. They will tell you float your currency, devalue your currency. That's the way you're going to make it. Cut down the people you employ. They create all these fake theories and give to you, but in reality, it will lead you nowhere. In fact, they created terminology after World War II. The developing countries versus developed countries. So developing countries to them were these countries that were not industrialized, that came out of colonialism, that actually need to follow the developed countries, so that the developed countries will give them aid and help them to develop. In reality, economy does not work by aid. No country will develop through another one giving you a handout, because economic actually is warfare. People don't know this. Economic is actually a cold warfare. So you're supposed to be controlling the rule. You're supposed to be in charge of your own economy. It's not just you join whatever global rule they created. Other than that, because these people created this rule because it favored them. If it doesn't favor them tomorrow, they will get rid of it. That's how the Western world has been working. So for me,
100%.
For me, I will end with this. It's not an issue of developed versus developed country. I think for me, it is countries who are industrialized versus countries that they are preventing from industrializing. That's all we have.
You made me remember my point as well, which was the fact that if I'm not mistaken, Hifet Bwani, near the end of in the 1980s, I believe it is, made some statement about the fact, or it was observed that, and this is why we need to understand economic terminology, because when they say economic growth, it does not necessarily equal economic development in the nation. No. And economic development of the nation doesn't necessarily mean a bettering of the material conditions of the people, if that makes
20%
sense.
At the bottom, 20%.
But so it was said something to the effect that the nation has grown, but there's been little or no development. Yeah, this is now a statement being made about the Cote d'Ivoire economy. In
real GDP, real income, 20% bottom Cote d'Ivoire, better than Ghana.
You have to find the source for that statistic. I'm not sure you're actually
Bridging.
I'm familiar with the statistic. I'm not sure you're actually relating it correctly, but you may well be. I'm just saying I'm not sure you are. But the point is that check out a video that we did already called the GDP Deception, where we discuss what GDP is designed to measure and what GDP is not designed to measure. what GDP can account for and what GDP can't account for, and how measurements of GDP as far as a nation is concerned. And yes, we do go through GDP and GDP per capita, because GDP per capita takes into consideration population. That's what the per capita element of it is. And how it is used for media purposes to promote the growth of a nation, as though the nation is doing necessarily better. The people of the nation are necessarily doing better because they have a higher GDP or a higher GDP per capita. To give one example of this, a nation can have a very high GDP per capita, as in a high rate of income per person within the nation, but that high GDP per capita could be the fact that there is, for example, as was alluded to earlier, a French millionaire operating within the nation that is making a lot of money. It doesn't necessarily that the median income or the people in general in that nation, the working population, is actually receiving that income. It could actually mean that there's a few super rich people in that nation that are skewing the
bottom 20%.
That are skewing the statistics in favor of a higher GDP and a higher GDP per capita. It doesn't equal development within the nation, and it doesn't equal an improvement in the material circumstances, conditions of the people. You have to be very, very clear about what these things actually mean. Yeah. So again, the issue is not me.
Before you come in,
the issue is not me, and when me say it's not I, who say the thing was freer. These are, if Coffee, for example, has an issue with Liberia being referred to as a free market economy or a freer market or whatever, then he has to contend with the policymakers who define these terminologies in the British government and the American government, their related banks, corporations, and think tanks that define policy and these kinds of things, because they are the ones who define freer, free, laissez-faire, and etc., etc. And sometimes the label that they put on it as a headline, as I've already suggested in relation to Cote d'Ivoire, whilst Cote d'Ivoire was being labeled and put forward to the world as a miracle that substantiates the policy, laissez-faire capitalism, the actual economists who were promoting these headlines would be, among themselves, understood that it was not in fact that.
Did so well say it was a laissez-faire?
They promoted it to the world as that. The same thing with Liberia.
Did so well say it was laissez-faire?
That is the point that Sekou was making. Liberia, because of its relationship with
who told Liberia as a success?
Of its relationship with American capitalists, was considered to be a freer nation because it allowed Firestone to go in and exploit the rubber and other corporations.
Who said that? Name the economist. That's
just the Liberian government. Let's not get it twisted. The Liberian government at the time of Papa Garvey was in fact a sellout government. There's no doubt about that. As most of our governments today are sellout governments. The issue here was the process of colonization and neo-colonization, and those who again promote free market fundamentalism that tacitly or otherwise support and align themselves with Western imperialism. They tend to, when push comes to shove, you push them back against the wall. They'll say, yeah, well, the government was corrupt, but they will not look at the fact that the government is corrupt because it is a client of British industry, American industry, French industry, British government, American government, and French government. Firestone was not just a company that was sold some land. Firestone was a neo-colonial agent representing the interest of Western imperialism in Liberia. That is what was going on. And they had a government in train at the time in the 1920s that was a willing client in that respect. And any government that dared to challenge that status quo post the 1920s was attacked by these same people.
All right. So again, So
in the same way that that Bagbo was attacked, in the same way that Olympia was attacked in Togo, in the same way that Asante Kwame Nkrumah was attacked, in the same way that Thomas Sankara was also attacked because him decided say him go and revolutionize the government of Burkina Faso, take them out of the CFA franc and change the trading relationship with France. Assassinated.
All right. So again, we get this same fool socialist argument. Heads I win, tails you lose. If corporation do something bad, well, that's the free market. And if government do something bad and abrogate individual rights, well, that's also the free market. Again, it's really stupid. That's one. Number two, you mentioned if France. Number two.
Again, free market, right? So
number two.
You don't have to evidence anything. Just say it's stupid based upon the theory, and it's stupid. Right? You know what I'm saying? Nick, don't do
number
it.
Two.
Don't do it.
Number two.
The theory says, and then it therefore is stupid. This is the point. Sorry, go ahead, Coffee.
Yeah.
The point that
Right. So free market, the free. Yeah. The free market means free from government interference. So the government in Liberia is interfering in the Liberians' the Liberian personal lives, enslaving them and disrespecting their property, individual rights. That can be free market because free in the free market means free from government interference and coercion. Two, you mentioned again this thing about is France. Why Côte d'Ivoire was such a better story compared to Ghana. Burkina Faso was dirt poor before Sankara. Mali and all them other countries there, they were also dirt poor. How come France never chomp up for them? Number three.
It was the source that Thomas Sowell used that made that point. Once again, Sowell used that made that point. Go ahead.
I'm struggling to understand Kofi's
Number three. ShakaRa says something about the reason why Francophone currencies were stable is because they were pegged to France and the French thing was stable compared to like Ghana and other countries where you had rampant inflation. Again, you don't understand basic economics. Inflation is a function of the central bank. Yeah, it don't matter if Ghana or Jamaica was not pegged to the British pound. The reason why the inflation take off in places like Jamaica and Ghana and other Commonwealth countries during certain periods of time, the reason why inflation runway is because of government deficits that are financed by the central bank. You understand? So that explains the fluctuation in inflation rates within a country historically and between different countries. That's not to do it well. If Ghana did stick to the British pound, their inflation would have been under control. No, if Ghana did keep government spending under control, they wouldn't have the inflation problem. Just like in Jamaica, where most of the capital in Jamaica is gobbled up by government. That can be a free market economy. Yeah,
when you have to prove some of that stuff you're saying. A lot of what you're saying is I don't think it's true.
He's making a feel-good statement. It's like a Christian saying.
All right, well, hold on. Listen, and you learn. Listen and you learn. Hold on. Listen and you learn. Listen, hold on, communists. Listen and you will learn. All right. So in terms of
I'm not a communist.
Yeah.
No,
in terms of quiet.
No,
comrade. So based on the claim that Jamaican government gobble up most of the capital, I will post the Gleaner article, the Jamaican Gleaner article, where the rate at which the government gobble up private capital started in the 1970s, where government overtake private capital as the biggest borrower of capital resources. Yeah, and again, that explains why the country did dip and Cuba did overtake we. You understand? Because we sabotage ourselves because of that. And you mentioned
we sabotaged ourselves to the extent that an openly socialist government has a higher GDP per capita.
let me finish. Let me finish, sir.
That became more socialist than Cuba.
Let me finish, sir. Let me finish. Well,
indeed.
If the government is eating up more of the capital, mean the capital is socialized. You understand? Again, Cuba, the only reason why Cuba did not crash after in the 90s in the way the Soviet Union did is because they eventually implemented market reforms, and none of them don't address that.
In the 90s. And probably the 60s or 70s. Anyway, finish your statement because we have to wrap up. So.
I'm trying to finish. Right? Uno don't address that. If free market reform is so wicked and impoverish people, why did Cuba have to do it? Why didn't they have to do it? Why did Israel have to implement market reform? Why did Soviet Union? Why did the Eastern Bloc implement market reform? Why did Sweden have to implement market reform after she experimented with socialism? Why New Zealand did have to implement market reform? Why China did have to implement market reform? If market reform impoverishes people, as the communist Sekou said, why countries...
Who said that? None of us said that. That's the next thing. None of us said that. You're the one saying this.
Capitalism don't impoverish. Okay.
I got to wrap you up. I got to wrap you up. Last words to everybody, please. So I'll go in order of appearance. Sekou, your last word, please. Right, Sekou?
In stunned, he can't come back.
I know. I am also stunned. Trust me, I'm very much stunned. Sekou, I can't hear you if you're speaking, and your mic is not muted, so I'm not sure why I wouldn't be. All right, let me come back to you, Melaman. Last word.
Yeah, just to start, Kofi, number one, you're not an economist, right? Let me just state that for the audience as well. So when you hear him try to explain inflation, you try to bring it down to one or two factors. I'm sure it's more complicated than that because the economists who are supposed to be economists, they themselves are wrong all the time, as we're discussing in the chat. So number one, you're not an economist. Number two, when you try to speak about Cuba and Jamaica and come up with crazy excuses, that's just insane. No matter what you want to say about Jamaica and the government spending, Jamaica is a free market economy. And Cuba is literally a communist economy under embargo before we even gained independence. An embargo means that they cannot trade with anyone.
They trade with the Soviet Union, dummy.
Which no longer exists. And at this current date and time...
And that's why they had to implement market reform. That's why
let me finish my point, please. I'm not going to repeat pseudo nonsense like you. So yeah, as I'm saying, even if they implemented market reforms, none of us on the panel said market reforms is inherently evil.
Oh, you admit no.
Let me finish. So none of us said that, right? What we point out to you is that your economic theory doesn't add up. When you try to make a prediction... Well, yeah, I'm going to speak for me then. When what I point out is that your economic theory doesn't add up, it doesn't lead to consistent and accurate predictions. So when you come and say, oh yes, having a liberal economy guarantees a good GDP per capita, I ask you, well, Cuba has a literal communist society. On top of that, it is under embargo, yet they have a higher GDP per capita than us. And back to the first point, you're not an economist. I wish you could have gotten to some of the other things, but you don't know. Bless up, ShakaRa. Panel.
Give thanks to your contributions today. Sekou seems to have dropped off. If he comes back before I conclude, I'll allow him to speak. It's important to know that Cuba has a higher GDP per capita, despite its population being over 11 million in comparison to Jamaica's 3 3 million-ish. Yeah. And so if you understand the fact that GDP per capita is the rate of production, basically in monetary terms per head of the nation, then you will understand what that means. All right, but another day we'll go into that a little bit.
Oh, wait, ShakaRa. One last thing I did forget to throw this in there. So, one clarification I wanted to also make is that there is serious problems with using even GDP per capita, right, as a metric to judge the welfare of a country. For instance, America's GDP per capita, as at 2021, was 70,248, whereas, and I think right now it's roughly about the same, whereas the median income in America per person, because per household is different because it's more than one person, but per person, it's roughly about like between 30 and maybe 50,000 at the moment. So that reflects the inequality within the society. Right. 100%. So that's all.
Give thanks for that, my brother. Right, I had to remove Coffee off the I didn't kick him out of the room. He left him by himself, but I took him off the panel because he kept interrupting Meloman's last word. Yeah, so I'm gone. But I was removing it. Well, I was gonna ask everybody to excuse themselves anyway. We're gonna wrap up the show. Good show today. So just to clarify, today I was going over the classification, for the Black Conservative Industrial Complex, and he was doing this in light of the fact that there's going to be a general election in the UK, and these representatives of the Black Conservative Industrial Complex over the tenure of the last government have in fact made significant headway in their media representation and having an influence on how the Black community discuss politics and economics, both nationally and internationally in the UK. And so I was given the different examples and caricatures with regards to these people and how they operate. And the first level is the minions, the minion them. These are people that we may not necessarily know their name, but they push white power conservative talking points, online. And some of these people are real individuals, and some of them are bots, as controlled by British and American intelligence as far as the English-speaking world is concerned. Then you have the peons and serfs. These are people who are, have chosen, off their own backs, based upon the relative success that they can see where others are concerned, in taking on these talking points and developing their own platforms, as a means for creating the wherewithal to be remunerated, and otherwise recompensed for their service to white power. These are people that will go on news shows and discussion shows, and podcasts, and prove to white people that they are not like the rest of the Negroes on the plantation, so to speak, and that they have decorum and sophistication, and they are not against Britain, and as a nation state, they're aligned with the British interest, and so on and so forth. Some of them are well known for going on platforms and discussing the problem with Black women, with white people. And they flag up things like fatherlessness in the Black community, and Black women twerk too much, and them kind of things there. All these talking points that are very popular within the white commentariat, as they call it, and all of these things. And then you have the Gentry and the Knights. The Gentry and the Knights are the first line of defense because they have been employed by the system, by the conservative leg of the system in general, in particular, to be the attack dogs, intellectual attack dogs of conservative, right-wing, neoliberal, white power, Western imperialism in today's world. So some of them are intellectuals, they write books, and are thought leaders within the space. And some of them, are politicians, members of and or peers of think tanks, and so on and so forth. And so we just need to identify these people. They are scheduled to lose the next election as far as the Conservative Party is concerned. They are scheduled to lose the next election. However, regardless of whether they lose the election or not, because I'm in a vote and I'm not really interested in who is in power, as far as the British government is concerned. But this particular force is being well resourced again to influence the nature and the trajectory of African political thought within our community as it relates to British national politics, but also in some ways, more importantly, as it relates to global politics in the Black African world. And so we need to be mindful of all of them. I went on to give some examples of those figures who operate at the Gentry and Knight level, and we went into some examples looking at how at least one of those individuals misrepresents because one of the roles of the Black conservative industrial complex is to distort, misrepresent, and neutralize the impact of African revolutionary thought. And so one of the ways they do that is by distorting African revolutionary history. And we gave an example of that just a minute ago. Yeah. And so, brothers and sisters, you know, as it stands, it just so happens, as I said, that when people jump on the conservative train, because of the fact that conservative within the context of white power and Western society means to conserve and perpetuate the principles and values of the West. Yes. In this case, the United Kingdom of Great Britain, i.e., quote unquote democracy, free market, fundamentalism, capitalism, rule of law, etc., etc., and as cultural products of the West and white power. Those of us as Africans who align with said individuals and their institutions tend to be allegiant to and promote the interest of white power. Yeah, and we've seen many examples of that today. I remember that I forgot to read his comments, so let me just do that right about now. Anthony says, gotkushTV, remember, Nana Maurice Bishop stated in his NYC speech, yes, indeed, unfortunately, our economy here in Grenada. You know, I didn't even know you was in Grenada, Anthony. Maybe I was supposed to have realized that before. But apologies and give thanks. See, I love, I keep saying, you know, I love all the audience, well, international, yeah, you know what I'm saying? Jamaica, America, you know, Antigua, you know, Grenada, we've had Zimbabwe, Ghana, you know what I'm saying? You know, so yeah, give thanks, Anthony. I didn't know you was in Grenada. Unfortunately, our economy here in Grenada is tied to the global capitalist system, 100%. And this is the point, right? So when you look upon these things now, and you know the Black conservative industrial complex, they know this, yeah, they know this. There's a political media. And then there's the economic specificity behind it all. Ultimately, it doesn't matter how free your market is if you are backing the interest of white people as far as African people are concerned. This is why I'm not too interested in the freeness of the market. Free market is the propaganda that they use to promote, to secure their access to our nations, our resources, our institutions, and so on and so forth. Yeah, but they are not above, and frequently do use quote unquote dictators to secure that access. So if free market is defined by the extent to which the market is open to foreign incursion, yes, it doesn't matter whether the government intervenes and controls the market or not, as long as they are controlling it on behalf of white power. That is the differential. Yes, that is the key differential that we need to understand. And there are certain points that were raised, yeah, that we need to go into certain details, because of the fact that you have to look at when they use the client state, they're not always on an equal footing. Cote d'Ivoire was a willing agent from early, and so they use Cote d'Ivoire to keep the rest of them in line. Yes. So if you look at the fact that, for example, the president in question, Houphouët Boigny, is implicated in collaborating with France and America and Britain in the destabilization of the Ghana economy, the overthrow of Asaja Kwame Nkrumah, the assassination of Thomas Sankara, and the destabilization of other nations in the French-speaking African in French-speaking West Africa that were not necessarily as aligned. Yes, he was used for that purpose, and so the perks that were associated with that, being the number one attack dog, were different to how the other nations represented themselves. But it didn't lead to a true and real economic development of Cote d'Ivoire and the significant improvement of the material conditions of the people, which is why people have been resisting in Cote d'Ivoire for a very long time, as they have been resisting in the rest of the nations in French-speaking West and Central Africa. And so I hope ones and ones have full enjoyed the show. Give me a black power fist. Give me a black power fist in the chat if you have learned something and gained something from today's show. I would love to see, to know if we're serving you well, brothers and sisters. And gonna ask you to stay tuned because we have a show coming to you tomorrow. We're not gonna put it out there right now, but yeah, you know what I'm saying. The observant will know, but yeah, we have a show coming to you tomorrow as well. So do stay tuned. We look forward to you joining us tomorrow, brothers and sisters, around the same time. All right. Black Power Fist in the chat if you gain something from the show. And with that, I say to you, Tendai Mwadi, be thankful to the mother, father, creative life force of the universe. Kudzai Munzimu Mokolo, giving praises unto our great ancestors. Abibi Tumi, Abibi Fahodi, African power and African liberation for all African people. I leave you, as Brother Anthony raised the name of Maurice Bishop, I leave you with the words of our ancestor, Baba Maurice Bishop. Ashe, Ashe, Ashe.
The real reason for all of this hostility is because some perceive that what is happening in Grenada can lead to a new socio-economic and political path of development. They give all kinds of reasons and excuses, some of them credible, some utter rubbish. There's an interesting one that we saw very recently in a secret report of the State Department. I want to tell you about that one, so you can reflect on that one. That secret report made this point, that Grenada is different to Cuba and Nicaragua, and the Grenada Revolution is in one sense even worse, I'm using their language, than the Cuban and Nicaraguan revolutions, because the people of Grenada and the leadership of Grenada speaks English and therefore can communicate directly to the people of the United States. I can see from your applause, sisters and brothers, that you agree with the report. But I want to tell you what that same report also said, and said that also made us very dangerous. And that is that the people of Grenada and the leadership of Grenada are predominantly black. They said that 95% of our population is black, and they had a correct statistic. And if we have 95% of predominantly African origin in our country, then we can have a dangerous appeal to 30 million black people in the United States.
Now, that aspect of the report clearly is one of the most sensible ones.